This is the story of a young man named Hyun-woo, who dreamed of getting a job at a large company and making money from computer games. It was late at night. The full moon was shining in the sky, and Ark's hands were covered in blood. Exhausted and wounded, he clenched his sword with all his strength, gritting his teeth in anger. He was attacked again and again, and Ark swung his sword, trying to fend off the attack. With a mighty swing, he delivered a powerful, crushing blow to the terrifying monsters. Swinging his sword in all directions, Ark destroyed the monster, tearing it to shreds. Shreds of fur flew in all directions from his crushing blows. Gripping his sword tightly, the boy felt the destructive energy approaching. A moment later, there was a powerful explosion. Blood splattered in all directions. Trying to protect himself, the boy covered his head with his hands, unable to resist. Knocked off his feet, he dropped his sword and, losing his balance, flew far to the side. Shreds of wool from the destroyed monster flew through the air. Crossed swords appeared in the sky. In the next instant, his sword crashed to the ground with a loud clang and stuck into the earth. Lying on the ground in his torn clothes, the guy thought about how he was in danger. He realized that one of the participants had already died and was therefore out of the competition. But the situation was still very dangerous. He had to be extremely careful to stay alive. Holding his sword with trembling hands, Ark slowly rose despite his lack of strength. He wondered how this had happened. Why? The greatest enemy of his life. At that moment, a squeak sounded. Rats surrounded him, their eyes gleaming, ready to attack. They surrounded him on all sides. Ark clenched his fists and gritted his teeth in anger. Screaming furiously, the guy swung his sword, ready to defend himself to the last. It all started when Hyun-woo went to a job interview at a large company. It was Global Exos, the largest developer of virtual reality game. He thought to himself that he had finally made it, regardless of gender or education. The most important thing was to pass the interview. This was the chance he would never get again in his not-so-successful life. He was already a failed athlete who had achieved nothing. In addition, Hyun-woo's mother was seriously ill and needed a lot of money for her treatment. He really hoped that if he passed the interview, everything would change. The guy told himself, "Kim Hyun-woo, let's start over." After receiving his ticket, the guy looked to see where his seat was in the lecture hall. Opening his phone, Hyun-woo saw that his seat was D, row 7, seat 4, and headed to his seat. When he found his seat, he saw a pretty girl sitting next to him. Looking at her, he wondered if she had been at the information desk earlier. The girl clenched her fists, smiled, and wished him and herself good luck. Smiling, the girl said that they needed to try their best. He thought irritably, "Why so close?" But he replied aloud, "Try your best." The employee announced that the lecture by the Global Exos operations manager would begin in a minute. All candidates were asked to take their seats according to the list. Holding his breath and barely containing his excitement, Hyun-woo thought that it had finally begun. The speaker said he was pleased to meet the candidates. He was the head of the Global Exos operations team. They would now inform them about the recruitment of new employees. Please pay attention to the screen. The logo, New World, flashed on the screen. The manager announced that they had developed it. It was the largest virtual reality game with up to 100 million online players. Instead of interviews, candidates would take an entrance exam. Hearing this, Hyun-woo was stunned. An exam instead of an interview is much more difficult. The department head said that tomorrow, all 2,000 applicants would be given capsules specially designed for the New World. They would be given capsules specially designed for the New World. Each capsule costs over 20 million won. They will be able to enter using this device. The capsule informed Hyun-woo that the system was working properly. He needed to put on the connecting mechanism after landing. The stunned young man thought that he was about to play a game he had never even dared to dream of. The manager reported that the testers and candidates liked everything. The annual salary was 200 million won, a dream sports car, the best apartments. The only thing they had to keep in mind. This meant they could use any methods. He smiled, adjusting his glasses, and wished them luck. The guy got into the capsule. The retina scan started, scanning the necessary personal info. The system reported that the user was not registered. He needed to register a new account. Appearance, gender, and race could be changed at will. Only one registered character can be created per account. There are 3 villages that the human race can choose from. The system reported that character creation was complete. Welcome to the New World. Opening his eyes, Hyun-woo was stunned to realize that he was in a new world. Before him was a view of a square with a fountain and a variety of people. People were selling and buying food. They were playing musical instruments. They were tearing down posters. Unable to believe his eyes, the stunned young man thought it was just like the real world. At that moment, a man approached the boy and spoke the first words of Irogu man. After greeting Hyun-woo, the man said that he was the head of the village. His name was Hansen. He asked if it was the guy's first time there. Hyun-woo thought he was a training NPC and replied that it was his first time. The head informed him that this was Harun, a village of the Stenberg Federation. If he had any questions, or if he needed work, he should come to him. But he hadn't heard his name yet. Thinking about it, the guy decided that this man was talking about a nickname for the game. Frowning, the chief asked if the guy didn't even know his own name. Strangers who appeared here once also did not know their names, like people from another world. Well, he wasn't too interested in that. He was in trouble and couldn't trust someone who didn't even know his own name. At that moment, Hyun-woo said his name was Ark. He decided that would be his name. He thanked Hansen. Smiling, the chief replied, "That's not a bad name either. Welcome to Harun Village. Ark, the stranger seeking adventure, he wishes him luck." He would eagerly await his bright future. Hyun-woo smiled. A vast land and endless stories, the strength and power of many races and monsters, and also a large number of destinies, a world consisting of legends and myths. Now this place is his new job, a new world. Hyun-woo was very happy. After saying his name was Ark, the guy asked Hansen to take care of him. The boss replied that he would. He wasn't planning on doing it anytime soon, but could he do him a favor? The owner of the bar at the entrance to the village was in trouble. Could he help him? Crichton was the bar owner. Crichton was worried about the growing number of monsters. The system's task was to meet with him, listen to him, and solve the problems. The guy decided that this was a quest and happily told the chief to trust him. Hansen pointed the way and said that if he went there, he would find the bar. The owner would recognize him and give him the task. Heading in the indicated direction, Hyun-woo soon found the bar he was looking for. The owner greeted the guy and said his name was Crichton. Frowning, he asked if the guy had come from Hansen. Smiling, Hyun-woo said his name was Ark. Turning away, Crichton said he couldn't send a guy who looked like that with them. Hyun-woo asked what he said. He replied that he believed in him anyway. Ark needed to take care of those creatures in the warehouse. Approaching the door, the guy felt a strange aura. It was ominous. Carefully opening the door, he thought about being ready. Upon entering, Hyun-woo was shocked to see a horde of rats in the warehouse. They were gnawing on the shelves and destroying supplies, moving swiftly around the warehouse. Stunned, Hyun-woo asked if they were really just ordinary rats. The bar owner shouted that he could lose his business because of them. The guy replied that he was sorry. He promised Crichton that he would do everything he could to help him get rid of them. Looking at Hyun-woo, Crichton wondered what had come over Hansen. Why did he believe in this guy? To start with, the guy activated the beginner's kit. He needed a weapon. He thought his first enemy would just be rats. He didn't like that. But this was a game about quests, hunting, experience, and rewards. He drew his sword and rushed at the rats. Swinging his sword, Hyun-woo delivered the first blow, but the rat deftly dodged and jumped aside. Stunned, the guy thought that these creatures were faster than he had expected. He swung his sword, but he couldn't kill a single one. The rat sat on the shelf, squeaking and looking at the guy with the sword. Hyun-woo couldn't understand why it didn't want to come closer. He could clearly see its movements. The rat stared at the guy with flashing eyes and suddenly lunged at him. The system reported that the rat had attacked and his health had decreased by 1. The rat attacked the guy again, and he lost his balance and fell to the floor. Swearing furiously, Hyun-woo couldn't understand what the hell was going on. Why was the rat so strong? At that moment, the bar owner, rubbing his sides, listened with a shudder to the noise coming from the warehouse. Sighing, he thought that this guy wasn't much different from other strangers. At that moment, Hyun-woo came out of the warehouse and told the owner that it was all over. Frowning, Crichton looked at the guy and said that it had been quite difficult. In exchange for his hard work, he would receive freshly baked wheat bread. The guy replied that it looked burnt but smelled delicious. He would do his best to enjoy it. Looking at the bread, Hyun-woo said that it was a strange reward. Hearing his words, the bar owner asked what he was saying. Covering his mouth with his hand, the guy thought he was so happy that he said it without thinking. Angered, Crichton asked if he was serious. How dare he ignore other people's sincerity? He didn't know his appearance or his character. That's why he didn't trust strangers. He told Ark to get out of there. The guy replied that even though it looked disgusting, he had done his job and would take the bread. The bar owner yelled at him to take it and get out of there. Walking back, Hyun-woo thought how ridiculous it was. He needed to gain the NPC's trust. Why be so realistic? Despite all the trouble, he only got 1 piece of bread. He would have been better off hunting. He needed to find out where the nearest hunting ground for beginners was. Most likely, he would be able to pass the test and increase his level. At that moment, someone called out to him. A guy and a girl approached him. The guy asked if he was alone and doing a training quest. That's right. The guy said his name was Andel, and his companion was Burma. Nice to meet you. Looking at them, Hyun-woo wondered who these people were. What did they want? Turning away, he said he didn't have time and was about to leave. At that moment, Burma called out, "Wait! If he skips the quest, there won't be any problems. Would he like to join them?" Smiling, Andel suggested they go hunt wild dogs outside the village. He was looking for team members of the same level. Don't worry, it'll be quicker with them. Looking at the pair, Hyun-woo thought it looked suspicious. He replied that he had just started and didn't know you could hunt dog. Usually at the beginning, you can only catch rats and rabbits because they are low level. Smiling, Burma shouted that they were pursuing a completely different goal. The guy said they wanted to level up quickly and move on. Another teammate wouldn't hurt. Hyun-woo thought he didn't trust them and didn't know what to do. At that moment, the girl told Ark to hurry up and come with them. He thought there didn't seem to be any trickery involved, but it still seemed a bit strange. Reaching out his hand, he said he was pleased to meet Andel and Burma. At that moment, the system informed him that he had joined the party. Hyunwoo thought that he had tried to hunt alone, but it hadn't worked out. Perhaps it would be better for him to go with these two after all. Soon they left the village to hunt dogs. With red eyes flashing, the wild dogs bared their sharp teeth and growled menacingly. Frowning, Hyunwoo swung his sword fiercely to deliver a crushing blow. But at that moment, the fearsome beast lunged at him and grabbed his arm. The boy screamed in terror and tried to fight off the dog attacking him. At that moment, Andel ran up and shouted to Hyunwoo to get down. "Let him come to you." Hyunwoo fell to the ground, and at that moment, Andel delivered a powerful kick to the dog. The dog flew to the side, but immediately got up and growled menacingly, its eyes flashing furiously. Running up to the guy lying on the ground, Andel asked if he was okay. Shocked, Hyunwoo shouted, "Why? Why is it so painful? It hurts more than I thought." The girl asked Ark how he was feeling. They would distract him while he caught his breath. Baring its huge fangs, the terrifying monster growled fiercely at him. Holding his wound, Hyunwoo thought that if he didn't help him, he wouldn't be kicked out because of it. If they did, he would have to fight the rats again. He couldn't let that happen. Gripping his sword tightly with his wounded hand, he thought that if that was the case, he would rather die. He rushed toward his companions, but Andel shouted, "No! It's too dangerous now!" But at that moment, Hyunwoo managed to stab the monster with his sword. He thought happily, did it work? The defeated monster collapsed to the ground, and the young man shouted that he had destroyed it. At that moment, Burma warned that the monsters had their own tactic. Confused, Hyunwoo asked her to repeat herself. What was she talking about? Suddenly, a huge pack of angry dogs rushed out of the forest toward them. Snapping their huge teeth, they rushed to surround the stunned boys. Hyunwoo, stunned, looked on in shock, not knowing what to do. His eyes widened in horror, and soon he fell into darkness. After a while, Hyunwoo opened his eyes and realized he was in bed. Andel was standing nearby and said that he had finally woken up. Dazed, Hyunwoo asked where he was. The guy said it was a hunting lodge for beginners. When a player dies, they wake up at a designated spawn point, but this is only available after 24 hours in the real world. Players below level 10 are immediately resurrected. Confused, Hyunwoo grabbed his head and asked if that meant he had died. What had happened? Sighing, Andel replied that they had escaped. There was no hunt. Hyunwoo asked if they had played something like this before. He said he was sorry. Burma replied that Ark was new to this. Everyone is like that at first. Frowning, Andel said that even if he was a beginner, his method was different from theirs. At that moment, Hyunwoo thought he needed to get out of the party. He was causing nothing but trouble. Andel told him that next time they would do everything differently. Relieved that he wasn't kicked out, the guy asked what different meant. Andel replied that it was more effective, but required his permission. He asked the stunned guy if Ark was willing to die for it. Shocked, Hyunwoo asked if he really had to die. Soon, they went outside the village again to hunt dogs. The vicious monsters grabbed Hyunwoo by the arms and legs, preparing to destroy him. In terrible pain, the boys screamed for Andel and Burma to attack. Wielding their swords, they charged at the terrifying beasts. Andel's crushing sword whistled through the air, and the destroyed dog flew to the side. Burma also swung his sword, delivering a crushing blow to the vicious dog. Ark left the team. He defended himself from the attacks. Soon he woke up again in bed. They decided to take on the mobs and reach level 10. After that, they would stop fighting them. They would obtain the necessary information and divide the profits. The system informed Hyunwoo that he had acquired the passive skill Indomitable Spirit. In emergency situations, he could attack an enemy's weak point. If 10th level players die because of this skill, they do not receive a penalty. The system reported that he was seriously injured, but was immediately rescued and healed. He had a serious accident. A penalty will be issued. After getting up from another attack, Hyunwoo said with satisfaction that Andel and Burma had finally reached level 10. Now he wouldn't have to put up with it anymore. Andel said that Ark was very persistent. Smiling, Burma said that it was all thanks to him. He was doing well. The satisfied young man said that now it was his turn to level up. They exchanged glances, and Burma replied that she couldn't get up early. Hyunwoo was stunned and replied that it was only 2 in the morning. At that moment, Andel said he had things to do too. They would see each other after lunch. Suddenly stopping, Burma said she had something for Ark. It wasn't much, but she wanted Ark to accept it as a token of her gratitude for his help. She handed him a sword and smiled, saying they would see each other tomorrow. The system reported that it was a rusty iron sword. Due to corrosion, its durability and attack power were reduced. It would break easily. It was perfect for dying in battle. After thanking Hyunwoo, he replied that he would take good care of it, and added him as a friend. But Andel and Burma said they were leaving. In an instant, they disappeared, and the stunned guy stood alone with a rusty sword in his hands. He was amazed that they had left so quickly, leaving him alone and unwilling to help. After a while, Hyunwoo exited the game, opened the capsule, and exhaled heavily. Looking at his hands, he thought that it was truly amazing. Everything was so real, except for the feeling of wind. NPCs with their own personalities and characters. Monstrous monsters with flesh like chicken. A very unusual and interesting game. Lying on his bed, he thought that all of this was distracting him from his main task. He must not forget that. After a while, Hyun-woo went to the hospital to visit his mother. Entering the ward with a basket of fruit, the boy told his mother that he had come. His mother was sitting by the window, looking out at the street. He told her that everything was fine. He had a chance to get a job at a large company. He was eating well and exercising. As he unpacked the food, Hyun-woo added that everything was fine, so she shouldn't worry. Smiling, Hyun-woo asked his mother if she agreed that this was good. His mother smiled and replied that, of course it was good. She believed in Hyun-woo. Soon he returned to the game. Walking down the street after the battle, he wondered what this feeling was. His body felt like cotton wool. What was going on? Why did he feel so bad? Leaning against the nearest wall, Hyun-woo thought that he still had some energy left. Does the game reflect the real state of the body? But that can't be. He had heard that the new world was recommended for rehabilitation. Then it wasn't his health that was poor, but some kind of error in the system. Or maybe his condition really was not good. He opened the character information. The system reported that the character's name was Arc, level 1. No profession or skills. Strength, agility, intelligence, health, wisdom, and luck were all minus 14. He shouted furiously, "What the hell? Why are all his stats in the negative?" He decided to find out what had happened and started searching for information on the internet. He decided that his stats were minus 14 because there had been a mistake. This couldn't be happening. How could they have missed such a bug? The guy started studying articles about stat analysis from all over the world. He was shocked when he read about the doomed contract online. He remembered how he had met Burma, and she had said 24 hours until reconnection. How the smiling Andel approached him with an offer to hunt together. He saw the smirking face of the guy who was shouting thanks for letting him fool him. With each death, all his stats decreased by 1. Returning to the game, he wondered if he should suspect these people, but he had no reason to distrust them. Hyun-woo told himself he was an idiot. Even when he was deceived, he continued to believe in these people. Angry, he decided he would never forgive Andel and Burma for deceiving him. He ran down the street shouting their names, trying to find out where they were. Sitting down on the ground by the fountain, Hyun-woo wondered what to do next. This was completely absurd. At that moment, a guy in armor walked past him. He decided that he was a player, and that someone in such armor must know everything. He approached the stranger in shiny armor and called out to him. Barely able to stand, Hyun-woo asked if he could ask a question. Why were all his stats at 1? Frowning in surprise, the guy asked if they were really at 1. Hyun-woo replied that he had been in a party. Did he know how to fix it? The guy replied that he didn't know. Hyun-woo was stunned. He asked seriously. The guy explained that this style of play was called cheating. It had been popular since the beginning of the game. A newbie who worked hard is taken into the squad, and after he becomes useless, he is simply kicked out. There are many such people. In despair, Hyun-woo fell to the ground and cursed furiously. How could this happen to him? Each level is worth 10 points. He had lost 84. Even if he reached level 10, he would still be weaker than level 2. At that moment, he remembered the words of the department head, who said that regardless of the methods used, they had to show the best results. Could that be what he meant, to use others to raise his own level? Hyun-woo was in despair. Suddenly, the guy in armor said there was one way out. Looking at him hopefully, Hyun-woo asked what that way out was. What should he do? Seeing the guy at the bar entrance, Creighton said that he had said he wouldn't work here anymore. Why did he come back here? Hyun-woo asked him to give him any kind of work. He promised he would do everything in his power. He begged him. He needed this job. Frowning, the bar owner looked at the guy, trying to decide what to do. Soon, the guy headed back to the bar's warehouse, which was full of rats. The guy in armor told him that it wasn't that there was no other way out. After many battles, his stats might go up by 1. He didn't know if there was a monster that everyone could defeat, but if he kept fighting, he could recover by the end. When your level goes up, you lose the ability to recover lost stats. The guy decided that although he wasn't very experienced, he knew how to fight rats. Days or months will pass, but he won't stop until he regains his stats. Swinging his sword, Hyun-woo thought that he would not be able to get such conditions in another company. The guy destroyed 100, then 1,000, and soon 10,000 rats. He had no intention of giving up, and was ready to do whatever it took to restore his stats. He swung his sword tirelessly, destroying rats one after another. Hyun-woo understood that he would not get another chance like this, and had no intention of giving up. Soon, the system informed him that thanks to his battle experience, he could restore the strength and agility he had lost due to penalties. The delighted guy realized that he had regained 2 points in 3 hours and opened the status window. But it took him a week, 99% of his experience. That's a big problem. For every 30% of experience, 8 points are restored. For every death, he would lose 30% of his experience and 6 stat points. It's like pouring water into a bottomless barrel. He said furiously that he would never forgive them. Returning to the warehouse with the rats, Hyunwoo thought furiously about why he had trusted them in the first place. Let them just wait. He would recover and find them. He would never forgive those two for what they had done to him. Frowning, Crichton watched the guy who kept coming back again and again. Suddenly, the stunned guy heard that he couldn't work there anymore. The bar owner told him that Ark had nothing more to do here. He should pack his things and leave. The guy asked why it was so sudden. He had worked here for a long time and had never complained. He asked for a little more time. Suddenly, Crichton placed 5 loaves of bread and 5 pieces of meat in front of Hyunwoo. He said the guy should take it. The guy was stunned. Smiling, the bar owner said he had done a good job. Others caught 1 or 2 rats, but he was different. Thanks to him, all the rats were gone. He didn't trust anyone and thought he was just like the others, but Ark had changed his opinion of himself. He doesn't know why the guy wants to catch more rats. He wants to give him a job at the blacksmith's. As he left, Hyunwoo wondered what this feeling was. He had responded harshly to Caden, but then he returned. He thought the bar owner would kick him out, but he didn't. Caden decided to forgive him after seeing how hard he worked. As he said goodbye, the bar owner told Ark to come back. Surprised, Hyunwoo thought that Caden was just an NPC, but he was more human than Andel in Burma. Leaving the bar, the guy went to the blacksmith's shop. He decided to listen to the story. The blacksmith said that once there were rats in his smithy. If he was from Caden, he would believe him. The guy saw a hearth with a large cauldron on the fire and crackling wood. With their red eyes flashing, the rats squeaked from all sides, but they were much bigger than the ones in the bar. Looking at them, Hyunwoo was stunned and wondered what kind of monster rats they were. He swung his sword to destroy the monsters, but it turned out that these rats were very fast. They deftly dodged his crushing attacks and ran away. Suddenly, one of the rats rushed at the stunned Hyunwoo. Cursing furiously, he swung his sword to destroy the vile creature. But suddenly, upon striking the rat, his rusty metal sword shattered into small pieces. Shocked, Hyunwoo watched as the metal shards flew in all directions. The rat ran away and the shocked young man couldn't believe that his sword had broken. Opening the status window, Hyunwoo read that it was a rusty metal sword with a durability of 30. With gleaming eyes, rats surrounded the guy from all sides. Not knowing what to do, he shouted, "Wait!" He asked a blacksmith to repair his broken sword and was stunned by the cost. He had to pay 20 copper coins for the sword repair and 10 for the clothes. A total of 30 copper coin. The young man said he had killed the rats in the warehouse and asked if he could get a discount. Thinking for a moment, the blacksmith said he had completely forgotten. If that was the case, he had already repaired the equipment, and if Ark didn't pay him, he would have to sell it. Hyunwoo thought how difficult it was. He currently had 70 copper coins, 6 loaves of bread, and 5 pieces of dried beef. He also had 3 wild dog skins. If he had to repair his things again, he would go bankrupt in a few times. Sitting on the floor, Hyunwoo wondered how he could save money while continuing to hunt. At that moment, he remembered Andel's words that it didn't matter what kind of monster it was. The most important thing was to find its weak spot. He replied that he didn't know that before. After some time, the guy learned to read the rat's attack. He died at the hands of dogs and learned to read their behavior patterns in battle. He learned to attack at the right time so as not to deliver unnecessary blows. And it all began. It was a national taekwondo tournament for juniors. Cho Min-jae from the red team against Kim Hyun-woo from the blue team. 20 seconds left in the round. The score was 8-9, with Cho Min-jae in the lead. Hyun-woo watched his opponent closely. They fought, but he couldn't defeat his opponent. Then he realized that he needed to focus. Concentrate his breathing, relax his muscles and joints, and watch his movements closely. At that moment, Hyun-woo tried to repeat this technique on the rats in the smithy. He realized that this was the feeling he was looking for. He managed to repeat those movements. The new world was nothing more than another reality, and it wasn't necessary to use a sword. Striking rapidly, the boy moved swiftly, destroying the rats one after another. Recalling all the techniques he had mastered during his sports training, he fought the rodents. Soon, the system informed him that he had acquired a new martial arts skill. It increased the accuracy of his strikes and his chance of dodging attacks. It also increased the damage he dealt. He thought that was cool. When used again, the skill becomes more effective. Now he could fight without a sword, using only his hands and feet. At that moment, a guy in the bar asked Crichton if he had heard any rumors about his friend. "It's that kid who's always fighting rats to regain his strength." The surprised guy asked if that really increased stats. The first guy replied that he didn't know, but he's been doing it for a month. Smiling, the bar owner said that Ark had left a couple of days ago. He works harder than anyone else in this village. Crichton thought about the boy. At that moment, Hyun-woo visited his grandmother. She said that her hands hadn't felt warmth in a long time. She was going to die soon, but she was very happy that he was visiting her. He replied that his grandmother had promised not to say such thing. She still had many years left to live, and he should not forget to take the medicine he had given her. The system announced that the quest was complete. A new skill, nursing, had been acquired. It increased strength and confidence by 20%. The boy thought that he couldn't skip the village head's quests, so he had no choice but to complete them. He didn't deserve such a skill. He wasn't even sure who he could use it on. As he left, Hyunwoo promised the old woman that he would use it well. The head thanked Ark for his help. Thanks to him, there were no rats left in the village, and they were now saved from disease and the terrible stench. The stunned boy asked if that meant there were no more rats. The head told him not to worry. Now they had fewer problems. After cursing, Hyunwoo thought that he needed to restore another point. The chief said that the others had turned their backs on them. He was the only one who had helped, and he was a true adventurer. He thanked him on behalf of the entire village. The system reported that additional experience had been gained from the village chief. At that moment, his level increased. The village chief thanked him. Excited, Hyunwoo realized that his level had risen, but he didn't need it right now. Cursing, he desperately thought about how he hadn't managed to restore all his stats. The system informed him that he had been given the title of Rat Hunter. As an additional bonus, all stats were increased by 1. The head said that everyone in the village knew that he put his blood, sweat, and dedication into hunting. The bar owner, Kryden, the blacksmith Tarian, and Grandma Johansson. He would speak on behalf of everyone he had helped. He is a hero of this village. They will call him Ark the Rat Hunter. He eagerly awaits the moment when he will see his bright future as the Rat Hunter Ark. The system reported that all his stats had increased and he had received 10 bonus points. He was delighted with his luck. Now his stats are 5 points higher than the other players. And he also has active skills. All he had to do was catch more than 10,000 rats. The boss said he was glad Ark was so happy. Hyunwoo decided to invest in dexterity. At that moment, Hansen asked if Ark had any other plan. The surprised guy asked if the head hadn't said there would be no more trouble. He replied that something had happened outside the village, and it was bothering him. He didn't know exactly where or how dangerous it was, but was Ark willing to try? The system gave him a task to meet with the bar owner and listen to the situation. He was surprised that Hansen could give him a quest other than a training one. Was this quest only for rat hunters? He replied that he could help. The chief said he would be glad if he took care of it. After a while, Hyunwoo went to the bar to see Kryden. The bar owner was happy to see him. Sitting down at the table, Hyunwoo said that they hadn't seen each other in a long time and asked how Kryden was doing. He offered him a mug and told Ark to drink this special red ginseng drink. The system reported that his health had increased by 1 hour and 30 minutes. He realized that eating food also increased his stats. Smiling, Hyunwoo told Kryden that he could offer him more of it. He would gladly drink it. He also heard that Kryden had a problem. The bar owner sighed and said that lately, no matter how many rats he caught, they kept reappearing. It was very difficult for him. The guy asked if Kryden hadn't heard that the rats in the village had been exterminated since he arrived. Frowning, the bar owner asked if Ark knew about the Hyrule Mountains surrounding the village. The guy nodded affirmatively. Kryden said that he had heard this story a few days ago from a passing traveler. While traveling deep in the mountains, he got lost. Wandering around, he found a cave with such a disgusting smell that he wanted to die. He couldn't stand the disgusting smell, but he couldn't suppress his curiosity because of the sounds, so he approached the cave. And the traveler found such an incredible number of rats that it was hard to believe. He couldn't say for sure, but it seemed that the rats were coming down from the cave. Therefore, Ark had to clean the cave as soon as possible. Otherwise, the rats will be able to repopulate the entire village. Hyunwoo asked if he could explore the cave. The bar owner said yes. Ark is a rat hunter. There's no one better than him. The system issued a new quest. Explore an unknown cave. Difficulty, G. The guy realized that the difficulty level had changed to G. When the details of a quest are unknown, the difficulty level is displayed as a dash. After a while, Hyunwoo headed for the mountains and soon smelled something foul. That meant he was close. Soon he realized that he had found the cave the bar owner had told him about. The system reported that a deep cave with an unpleasant smell and bone-chilling cold had been discovered. It felt as if it held a secret. No one had found this dungeon yet. He would receive extra points. Did he want to register? Ark realized that he was the first to discover it. He clicked Decline Registration. If he registered the hidden dungeon, players would flock here like dogs to take his loot. And more importantly, the enemies he should fear are not monsters, but players like Andel and Burma. He decided that he would lose experience points and fame, but he didn't need these dogs here. Entering the cave, Hyunwoo decided he would never trust players again. The guy lit a torch and decided to explore the cave, carefully moving deeper inside. He smelled a terrible stench that was hard to bear. The guy thought that he had gone quite deep, but he didn't see even a single ant, let alone rats. Are there any special conditions for rats to survive? Suddenly, Hyunwoo stopped and thought he heard a rat squeak. He tried to figure out where they were all hiding. Why couldn't he find them? At that moment, Hyunwoo, stunned, saw a deep pit in front of him. At the bottom of the pit lay a human skeleton. Next to it was a sword. The stunned young man was examining the skeleton when he noticed a flash of red eyes. He realized that he hadn't even noticed when they had appeared, and begun to surround him on all sides. With every passing minute, things got worse and worse. hordes of rats kept coming and coming. At that moment, Hyunwoo realized that he had to run away immediately. There were too many of them. He sprinted toward the exit, screaming furiously as he ran. Hyunwoo knew that if they caught him, it would all be over. He had already spotted the exit from the cave when he realized with horror that there were rats in front of him too. Countless terrifying creatures surrounded him. He didn't know what to do and didn't want to die so stupidly. At that moment, the system reminded him of his active skill, and Hyunwoo activated Cat Spirit. The Cat Spirit skill paralyzes the enemy for 30 seconds. It reduces attack power, defense, and combat spirit by 20%. Using the skill, the guy noticed that the rats had stopped chasing him. Deciding that it was time to escape, Hyunwoo rushed toward the cave's exit. Climbing onto a tree branch, the guy decided to think about what to do next. As he walked, he didn't see a single rat, but as soon as he approached the skeleton, they appeared. The player's body disappears over time. That means this skeleton is an NPC, and that means it's related to the quest. But he was surrounded by tens of thousands of rats. He couldn't destroy them one by one. Hyunwoo didn't know what to do. At that moment, the guy noticed that there seemed to be bloodthirsty wolves everywhere. He looked at the wolves, which were letting out terrifying howls. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Throwing a rock at one of them, Hyunwoo shouted loudly, "You stupid wolves! They can't do anything but lie around here. They can't even catch a rat when they're alone with it." He taunted the enraged wolves, shouting loudly that they were cowardly wolves. Furious and snarling, the terrifying predators began to approach. The pack of wolves, growling furiously, rushed toward the screaming boy. He thought happily that he had done it, and shouting, "Catch me!" Zrenya rushed back into the cave. He shouted that they were stupid wolf cubs and couldn't catch him. The wolves ran after him, snapping their teeth. As he ran away, Hyunwoo thought that there were about 10 of them, and wasn't sure if that would be enough, but at least he would have some time. Hyunwoo shouted for the rats to come out quickly. A few moments later, a horde of rats surrounded the boy who had run into the cave. At that moment, he activated his Cat Spirit skill, and all the rats froze for a moment. The guy quickly hid behind a rock, and at that moment, wolves ran into the cave. Soon they were surrounded on all sides by hordes of aggressive rats. The wolves looked warily at the rodents approaching from all sides. Watching them from his hiding place, Hyunwoo hoped that everything would turn out well. He was curious to see what they would do. At that moment, one of the rats approached a standing wolf and bit its nose. The enraged wolves rushed to destroy the rats that were trying to bite them. Clicking their huge fangs, they scattered the torn bodies of the rodents. Hyunwoo watched happily as his plan worked. Everything turned out just as he wanted. A new world had been created in the image of reality, with the same food chain as in real life. He had already seen wolves eating rabbits and rats. Now, he would just wait for them to finish. At that moment, Hyunwoo grabbed his sword, emerged from his hiding place, and attacked the wolves. He furiously delivered crushing blows to destroy the bloodthirsty predators. Swinging his sword, he managed to destroy several dangerous beasts. With eyes flashing furiously and growling, a wolf stood opposite Hyunwoo, ready to attack. Gripping his sword tightly, the young man thought that all he had to do was strike. That was all. Soon, Hyunwoo was surrounded by a pile of dead wolves and rats. Looking around, he thought that using others was the best decision. Wolves are more dangerous to rats than he is. It was easier than easy. Biting each other, they didn't notice how they began to die. He was a genius. When they die, he can just collect the loot to level up. The exit wasn't too badly damaged, and there was still enough food so he could move on. He decided that what he needed to do now was to get to that skeleton. Reaching his goal, Hyunwoo hit the skeleton on the head and shouted that he had made him suffer. It was guarded by so many rats that he was sure he could find some. It would be nice if it was money or some kind of item. After searching the skeleton, the stunned guy found a map and was very surprised. The system informed him that he had found a piece of parchment left behind by an unfortunate traveler. Hyunwoo read that it had been 3 years since Harvest had placed the order, and he set off in search of it. He found what he was looking for deep in the cave, but it turned out that a monster lived there, and he was unprepared. It was his fault. He was injured when he entered the cave. Now the secret of this cave would die with him. It was impossible to read any further. The parchment had been gnawed by rats. The guy realized that there was a monster here. Now was the best time to finish his research and report back. At that moment, he heard footsteps. Before he could think that the footsteps sounded very heavy, a monster appeared in the torchlight. The system reported that the boss, the black bear rat, had appeared. This mysterious creature lived in the cave. Perhaps it was the giant rat monster that controlled all the others. He had to leave the cave. Suddenly, Hyunwoo was hit by a powerful blow. The system reported that he had not dodged the blow and was stunned. He would regain consciousness in 5 seconds. The guy was lying at the bottom of the cave and couldn't move. He was stunned that it was just one blow. The huge monster rat spread its clawed paws and rushed toward him. Soon, Hyunwoo returned to the village to recover. He didn't understand why the medical expenses were so expensive. He had been beaten before he could even react. His level was only 7, so he lost 50% of his health from a single blow. As he entered the bar, Hyunwoo wondered how he could possibly hunt someone like that. At that moment, Kraden shouted that the rat hunter Ark had returned. The guy replied that he had come to report. Hearing this, the people began to murmur. What was a rat hunter doing here? Mr. Kraden only gave quests for catching rats. Frowning, Hyunwoo realized that there were too many prying eyes. The players might figure out that he had received a special quest, and he had suffered too much to talk about it. He told Kraden that there were too many ears around to talk. The bar owner asked what had happened. Hyunwoo told him everything he had encountered. Frowning, Kraden said that this was different from what he had expected. A cave where such a terrifying monster lived. He needed to tell the Lord about the monster before it attacked the village. Soldiers had to be sent to destroy it. But at that moment, Hyunwoo shouted, "No!" The bar owner asked what he meant by no. The guy regretted telling him about the monster. If the Lord sent soldiers, the other players would definitely find out, and the probability of getting the treasure hidden in the cave for completing the quest would be close to zero. He couldn't let that happen. He had wasted so much time getting the quest. He couldn't lose everything at the last moment. Glancing at Kraden, he decided to let him decide. Hyunwoo shouted for Kraden to assign the task to him. He told the stunned bar owner to assign the task to him. He wanted to do it himself to repay Kraden. Just give him a little time. Kraden replied that he didn't know what to think about it. Of course, he believed in him, but the safety of the village was at stake. If he messed up, the entire village would be in danger. He didn't have time to wait until Hyunwoo became strong enough. The young man replied to Mr. Kraden that it was a matter of honor for him. Hearing about honor, the bar owner thought deeply about what to do. He said he would give Ark 10 days. Let him try to do it. If he doesn't succeed in that time, he will ask Lord Saxony for help. Time was running out. There was nothing he could do about it. Did Ark really want to do this? The young man replied that the safety of the village was paramount. He would manage it in 10 days. Sighing, the bar owner agreed. He believed him and would give him a chance. The system informed him that his quest was to destroy the monster rat. If he didn't make it in 10 days, Kraden would notify the Lord and the quest would be cancelled. Difficulty, F+. Hyunwoo read this information by accident while researching the new world. The quest is elite, so its difficulty is much higher than usual. This level of difficulty can only be completed by a user with the appropriate level or a well-formed party. This location is a plus for the quest. It is impossible for him to complete a quest with such a high difficulty level, but he cannot just give up. And he will never join a party. He needs to find a way to complete the quest in 10 days. At that moment, the bar owner asked if Ark had enough food. He replied that food runs out quickly when exploring caves. Does Kraden have any wheat bread left? The bar owner asked if Ark had considered learning to cook instead of taking bread from it. Once upon a time, he had explored various places just like Ark. During his travels, food was his main problem. But one day, he finally found a special recipe. He asked Ark if he wanted to learn it. The system informed him that he could learn a new survival skill, cooking. Once he learned it, he would be able to prepare a dish by mixing any ingredients. However, it is impossible to predict the effects. Sometimes you have to risk your life to find out the consequences. To cook food using this recipe, a special pot is required. The system reported that the player had obtained the iron pot needed for the survival cooking skill. After some time, Hyunwoo returned to the dangerous cave to complete the quest. Using the cat spirit skill, he fought fiercely against hordes of rats. He destroyed them by the thousands to increase his stats. It was extremely dangerous, but he managed to restore his stats. However, he still had one major problem left. It was a terrifying rat monster. Releasing Cat Spirit, Hyunwoo prepared for a deadly confrontation with the monster. With gleaming eyes and baring its sharp fangs, the monster growled menacingly at the young man. He realized that this skill was useless, probably because this monster was a boss. Rushing toward the exit, Hyunwoo mentally shouted for the monster to wait and not attack. Running out of the cave, Hyunwoo looked back at the glowing eyes in the depths of the cave. He watched anxiously to see if the monster would follow him out of the cave. The monster turned away, growling fiercely, and Hyunwoo breathed a sigh of relief. He thought to himself that he was lucky that it hadn't come out of the cave. He didn't know what to do next. Lying on the ground, the boy racked his brains trying to figure out how to catch the monster. Was there any way to defeat it in the time he had left? The cave was crumbling around him every time it could. He decided to check his inventory. Now, in his beginner's bag, there was a special pot from Kraden, and he decided to use it. Deciding he had no choice, Hyunwoo prepared to use it for cooking. As ingredients, the guy decided to use everything he saw in front of him. He gathered various herbs and mushrooms and added them all to the pot. As he poured water into it, he remembered that it was said to boil even without fire, but he wasn't sure if it would really work. Soon, Hyunwoo was stunned to see that the water in the pot had indeed boiled. Suddenly, a strong steam came out of the pot, and there was a loud explosion. Jumping aside, Hyunwoo cursed, wondering what the hell had happened so suddenly. Could he have meant that there was a risk to his life? Such a powerful explosion. Angry, he wondered if Mr. Kraden wanted to destroy him. Looking at the empty pot, Hyunwoo realized that it hadn't worked. He decided that he would keep trying until he succeeded. He gathered new ingredients and added them to the pot, but soon, a powerful explosion shook everything around him again. After several attempts, craters from the explosions remained on the ground. He added everything he could find and waited. Carefully approaching the pot, he thought that it was very annoying. He was afraid that there would be another powerful explosion, but this time, when Hyunwoo opened the lid, he saw a bright glow. The food in the pot was boiling and looked quite appetizing. He hoped it had worked. The system reported that the survival cooking was successful. The dish was prepared using soil. You can't know what the dish is without trying it. After confirming the dish, its recipe would automatically be added to the recipe list. Hyunwoo thought it looked disgusting, but smelled amazing. He ate what he had cooked. Suddenly, Hyunwoo felt an unusual sensation in his body. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. The guy felt his body fill with powerful, overwhelming energy. He fell to the ground. The system reported that he was under the effect of paralysis caused by poison. After leaving the new world, Hyunwoo unpacked the boxes, unable to stop thinking that now was not the time to be doing this. There were only 8 hours left until the end of the quest, and he had no idea how to complete it. He thought about how to complete it. He needed a way to make up for his lack of level. At that moment, he saw Hee-sung climbing on top of the boxes. Shaking with fear, she climbed higher and begged to be saved. Not far from her sat a rat that the girl was very afraid of. Frowning, Hyunwoo asked her what she was doing and looked at her in confusion. With tears in her eyes, the frightened girl begged Hyunwoo to save her. Looking at the rat, the boy thought that rats were a problem in both games and reality. The rat glared at them menacingly and squeaked loudly, showing no intention of leaving. The guy crouched down in front of the rat, which squeaked louder and louder. Angered, Hyunwoo shouted seriously. He was fed up with it. He grabbed the rat by the tail and lifted it into the air. He asked the girl everything. He told it to get off quickly because he needed to work and it was getting in his way. Frightened, Hee-sung asked if Hyunwoo wasn't afraid of rats. He asked with a smirk if they were scary. After catching 10,000 of them, they weren't scary at all. He was even bored with them. She asked in surprise where he had seen so many rats. At that moment, Hyun swung the rat toward her. Startled, the girl swung at him with all her strength, hitting him in the face. The guy who didn't expect that fell down. Hee-sung screamed, asking him why he was doing that to her. She really hated rats, and she didn't want to hit him, but it was so disgusting that she got scared and did it. The upset girl shouted that she had to talk to the manager immediately and ask him for rat poison. The guy asked Hee-sung to repeat what she said. The surprised girl repeated that she had to ask the manager for rat poison. At that moment, Hyunwoo realized that this was a brilliant idea. He needed poison. As he ran away quickly, he wondered why he hadn't thought of it before. Turning around, he shouted to Hee-sung, "Thank you so much for the great idea." She screamed, "Blood!" He didn't even notice that blood was coming out of his nose. Where was he rushing to? Back in the new world, Hyunwoo took out Creedon's pot and started cooking. He muttered, "Cook well so I can use it on the rat." Soon, Hyunwoo returned to the cave and shouted loudly, "Hey rat, come out!" He came back again, and don't look so annoyed. He didn't want to come here either. Throwing the bag in front of him, Hyunwoo shouted that now it was time for it to receive its farewell gift from him. He wondered if she would like the smell. Even if it was the boss, he was still a rat. Would she be able to stand the smell? He shouted for her to eat and not to hesitate. Smirking as he watched the rat, Hyunwoo thought that the most important thing was the taste. Soon, the rat tore open the bag and began to devour the food the guy had prepared. When the monster had almost finished eating, Hyunwoo decided it was time to start. Grabbing his sword, he shouted furiously that if she was full, she should come here. The enraged rat glared at him with flashing eyes and bared its fangs threateningly. He shouted that it was time to say goodbye. Today would be his last day. At that moment, the stunned young man realized that the poison had no effect on the rat. Flashing its eyes fiercely, the monster growled menacingly and began to approach. Shocked, Hyunwoo stared in horror at the terrifying rat monster. Swinging his sword, Hyunwoo rushed at the monster, preparing to deliver a crushing blow. Seeing the man with the sword approaching, the rat monster growled menacingly. In an instant, it lunged at the wall, clinging to the stones with its huge claws. Turning away from the young man, the monster swung its enormous tail to strike it. Stunned, Hyunwoo barely managed to block the crushing blow. The rat monster leaped forward, and the young man stuck his sword into the ground to keep from falling. Cursing furiously, he gripped his sword tighter and rushed after the monster to attack again. At that moment, the monster turned around and delivered a deadly blow to Hyunwoo with its paw. The powerful blow sent the guy flying into the wall. Shards of stone flew in all directions. Jumping up, the monster prepared to attack the guy to crush him. The young man looked in horror at the terrifying monster ready to destroy him. Jumping to the side, Hyunwoo cursed that he had almost died from the powerful blow. Why the hell didn't the paralyzing effect work on him? Probably because he's too big. At that moment, the terrifying monster raised its paw to strike. With its powerful paw, the monster knocked Hyunwoo off his feet, and he flew to the side, crashing into the cave wall. The wounded guy coughed and fell to the bottom of the cave, struggling to breathe, looking at the monster's evil, gleaming eyes. Hyun-woo thought that the paralysis had not worked on it, and that he now had no idea how to destroy it. Suddenly, the guy noticed that the monster had frozen in place. The monster's body trembled, and it growled fiercely at the approaching man. The guy didn't know what to do. The effect didn't work because he hadn't eaten enough for its mass. He quickly drank the contents of the bottle to restore his health. A moment later, Hyun-woo felt a powerful surge of energy in his body. He thought the potion had completely restored him. This is amazing. Now that he had come this far, he couldn't back down. The guy decided to try something else. He didn't want to give up. Gripping his sword tightly, he swung with all his might and charged at the monster. He rushed at the terrifying monster and delivered a crushing blow to its shoulder. The wounded monster roared furiously, and Hyun-woo jumped aside, realizing that his sword had hit its target. At that moment, the system announced that he had mastered a new skill, swordmanship. Passive. He had taken his first step in the art of swordmanship. All penalties received when using a sword disappear. Now, he wields the sword as if it were his own hand, can be used with different techniques. If there are skills that can be combined with swordmanship, he will gain additional mastery, can be used for self-defense. Attacking the rat monster, Hyun-woo felt that the sword was now much easier to handle. The difference before and after was enormous. At that moment, he noticed that the monster's entire body was turning red. This meant that it had less than 10% of its health remaining. Shouting furiously at the monster that it was over, he swung his sword and rushed into attack. Standing on its hind legs, the rat monster glared fiercely and growled menacingly. It swung its huge paw to strike the boy. Hyun-woo recoiled in horror. He barely managed to dodge the deadly attack and cursed furiously, not understanding what the hell was going on. He couldn't understand why the monster had suddenly started attacking so fiercely. Frowning, Hyun-woo firmly decided that this time, he would not lose. Holding his sword in front of him, he clenched his teeth and fiercely parried the deadly attacks. The monster growled viciously, trying to attack, but Hyun-woo shouted fiercely, refusing to give in. But at that moment, the young man noticed that small cracks were appearing on his sword. A few moments later, the weapon shattered into small pieces, and Hyun-woo fell to the ground. The system reported that the sword's durability had reached 0 and was therefore destroyed. Lying on the ground among the broken stones, Hyun-woo cursed furiously, not knowing what to do. Huge evil eyes glared down at him menacingly. Suddenly, Hyun-woo noticed that his body was also beginning to turn red. Smirking, he shouted at the monster that they were now on equal terms. The system reported that his health level had dropped to 10%. At that moment, the rat monster swung its paw. It struck with all its might, but Hyun-woo managed to jump aside, and the blow landed on the ground. The stunned young man realized that if the monster hit him now, it would mean certain death. If he died now, all the hard work he had done would go down the drain. He had come this far, and his sword had broken. He was just incredibly lucky. The terrifying monster growled menacingly as it approached, preparing to attack. Swinging its huge paw, the monster roared and lunged forward to destroy the man. Gritting his teeth in anger, Hyun-woo decided that even if he died, he would take it with him. He jumped up sharply to dodge the monster's deadly blow. Suddenly, the stunned boy realized that he was on the snout of the rat monster. The terrifying monster and Hyun-woo stared at each other in shock. At that moment, the delighted guy realized that this was his chance. He struck with all his might, shouting for the monster to go to hell. He shouted, "You damn rat! How do you like that?" Let it go to hell at last. Hyun-woo's powerful blows landed on the rat monster's head, causing its entire body to tremble. A few moments later, powerful streams of energy were released from the monster's body. The system reported that thanks to Hyun-woo's indomitable spirit, he had managed to discover the rat monster's weakness. He dealt critical damage to his opponent. A few moments later, the monster's body lying on the ground began to dissolve. Looking at the remains of the monster, Hyun-woo shouted joyfully that he had finally succeeded. The system reported that his level had been raised to 11 and his stats had been increased. His loot was leather armor made from black bear rats. It was so durable that even a sword couldn't pierce it. The second item was a rusty sword used by the man who had been eaten by the rat monster. The guy was stunned that this was all he got. He had hoped for more. He decided that if he kept looking, he would surely find something. This couldn't be all the loot. After searching the entire cave, Hyun-woo cursed furiously, unable to believe that this was really all there was. In desperation, the guy hit the wall and noticed an unusual stone with inscriptions. The system reported that he had stumbled upon a mysterious slab, the mystery of the mysterious slab. He found a slab guarded by a monster rat. It contained ancient secrets. Its surface was covered with unknown symbols. Perhaps this is what the man who died at the cave entrance was looking for. It must be given to someone who truly needs it. He was surprised that there was a new quest. This isn't the end. It means that everything is connected. These are interconnected quests that form a single story. First, there were the two of them. Then the village NPCs with the rat hunt, including their evil boss. Now all the pieces of the puzzle fit together into one big picture. He returned to the village and told Crichton that he had managed to destroy the monster. The bar owner was stunned, and Hyun-woo spread the monster rat's skin out in front of him. Astonished, Crichton said that if its skin was that huge, how monstrous the rat must have been. The system announced that the quest was complete, and his level had risen. Crichton handed him his reward. It was a pouch containing 10 gold coins. The young man was very happy with the reward. The village chief said he had heard about Ark's work, fighting and defeating a huge monster. Now he was no longer just a rat hunter. The system announced that he had received the title of Rat Extermination Master. His damage in battles with rats had increased. The cat spirit had raised his level. At that moment, Hansen said there was something else. Grandma Johansson, whom he had recently been caring for, had passed away. Before she died, she made sure that her small inheritance went to him. It was about 30 gold coins. The young man thought that he had actually been worried about her condition because she had been getting worse. Could he accept it? The head said that this was very sad news. However, after parting, there is always a new meeting. He should not refuse Mrs. Johansson's sincere gift. If he has free time, old Mr. Brown from the village. At that moment, Hyun-woo interrupted him, saying that he had found a stone slab in the cave. Does Mr. Hansen know Viscount Harveston? The head was surprised by this question. He replied that, of course he did. Viscount Harveston is a very powerful lord who rules the country. But why is Ark interested in that? The boy replied that he was just curious and that it was time for him to go. He decided that he had finished gathering information about the next quest, so it was time to prepare for the journey. Now, Hyun-woo had leather armor made from black rat skin, which was highly elastic and covered with stiff bristles. It was excellent armor and protected against the cold. He also had a sharp, gleaming sword, sharpened from a rusty sword. The sword was easy to use because of its light weight and was perfect for a beginner. After trying on the equipment, Hyun-woo was delighted. The blacksmith asked if he liked it. Ark was the savior of his city, so he tried his best. His armor and sword were not in the best condition, but he managed to make them as good as possible. Hyun-woo couldn't believe that things that were in such terrible condition could look like new. This sword is very good. A man of his caliber could only dream of such a weapon. He said he couldn't even imagine doing something like that with his equipment. The blacksmith smiled and replied that he was very glad that Ark liked it. He told him to use it in good health. The boy approached the gate to leave the village, and at that moment heard someone call out to him. The head blacksmith and the bar owner said that he hadn't even thought to say goodbye to them. What a pity. Surprised, the young man asked what they were all doing there. He hadn't expected to see them. The head replied that the benefactor of their town was going on a journey. They simply had to see him off. He thanked Hyun-woo for everything. He said that he was now a real rat tamer. The bar owner added that thanks to Ark, all the rats in the city had disappeared. The blacksmith smiled and thanked him for listening to their problem, unlike other people. The villagers shouted, "Thank you, Ark," and waved to him. They told him to be careful. The chief added that he believed that a sincere and loyal person like Ark would achieve great things. They would never forget his dedication and effort. He hoped Ark would have a safe and pleasant journey. Embarrassed, Hyun-woo thought that he had only helped them for money and to complete the quest for stats and data, and they treated him like that. He was very upset that he had been stabbed in the back by Andel and Burma and lost his status. But in the end, his stats became higher than his level required. He also gained the unusual passive skills, Unbreakable Spirit, and Sword Mastery. He also gained the active skills, Nursing and Cat Spirit, which are very useful. He also obtained a huge amount of items and money that will help it. The best thing for a player, apart from rewards, is recognition from NPCs. They are much more like real people than real people. Thank you to all the residents of Harun Village. At that time, Director Ha Myung-woo was going up to the floor. He asked Director Kim Gwan-tae if there were any messages from the candidates. He replied that a report on all 2,000 applicants had arrived. Ha Myung-woo asked if there were any interested candidates. Handing him a sheet of paper, he asked why they had to get the reports themselves when fax and mail had been around for a long time. He replied that this issue was very important for their company, so they must not leave any traces. They needed to check the reports and destroy them. Over the past month, about 20 users had reached level 50, and half of all players were already at level 30. Director Kim replied that of course most would play as usual. However, this was not the method they were looking for. This was entirely in line with expectation. Everyone should know that it's difficult to join their company, which has the best innovations and technologies in history. They must use all means to develop the company. Money and connections are what they need, and the ability to recruit people. The more desperate a person is, the higher their standards will be. Are they considering the possibility of accepting them? Myung-woo shouted that he must be joking. They are all bums who never learn anything. They need to find people from the upper social classes. That's the only way they can achieve their goals. Showing the documents, Kim Gwan-tae said that he was thinking of weeding these out, or accepting them. These are the players with the lowest level. However, they skillfully exploit the strengths of the system. These two stand out more than the others. Reading the information, Ha Myung-woo asked about the 13th and 16th levels, unemployed. But Kwon-tae replied that they were at the initial levels. However, these players were very different from the rest. But Hae Myung-woo shouted furiously that they should not pay attention to such trash anymore. Kwon-tae asked if they were different. Hae Myung-woo said there was no need to check 2,000 copies of reports every month. And by the way, there was no need to report on the failures every time. It was a waste of time. As he destroyed the reports, he said that as long as the exam period lasts, they must judge fairly. On the floor at the feet of director Ha Myung-woo was a report on Kim Hyun-woo. After leaving the game, Hyun-woo went to the hospital to visit his sick mother. He asked if she was okay. She replied that she wasn't in any pain and felt much better. She was doing physical therapy every day. His mother asked him anxiously what was wrong with his face. Was everything okay with him? And not to say that it wasn't hard for him. Hyun-woo replied that everything was fine. The boy replied that he was just trying to focus on his job interview exam. His mother said that if it weren't for the accident, he could have gone to university, found a girlfriend, and lived a normal life like everyone else. The boy replied that she should stop saying that. He didn't blame his father. The only thing he regrets is that he wasn't mature enough to take proper care of her. However, he really likes his life today. He is very satisfied and happy. He hopes his mother gets better soon, so they can go on a date with her. He promised to visit her the day after tomorrow in the morning, and told her he loved her very much. As he left, Hyun-woo thought about how some things that used to annoy him now seem completely normal. As a child, he used to brush his mother's hand off his shoulder because he was embarrassed. Was it really the new world that was influencing him and changing his character? He realized this while completing a quest. The rewards depend on how well he helped someone. In any case, the methods for completing quests take the same amount of time. Plus, he can get a bigger reward for the same mission. From that moment on, he began to understand what the villagers wanted from him. The funny thing is that the technique of reading people works in real life too. And why couldn't he handle such an easy task before? Now, no matter what, he has to try. He can't become weak. He needs to develop. His poor mother had a much harder life than he did. He couldn't let her down. A continent where, by the grace of God, sunshine reigned all the time. A new world. However, its history was marred by blood and battles. Long ago, in a time no one remembers, chaos reigned on the continent. Countless tribes fought each other constantly, destroying one another. However, it was this that put an end to the chaos. An absolute evil, unlike anything else. It attacked all the races that existed at that time. Its mighty power stained the entire continent with blood. In the face of this almighty enemy, everyone seemed like newborn babies. Everyone held their breath and trembled with confusion and fear. Thus began the dark time. However, the deeper the darkness, the brighter the light. Only when the harbinger of evil reached its peak, there were those who decided to rise up. 7 heroes whose names remain in history. Among these heroes were 3 ordinary people: a dwarf, an elf, and an orc. And also a hero named Marwan. They formed a blood alliance in the center of the continent. Cries of despair were replaced by cries of victory. Step by step, the chronicle of the battle was created. In the end, the alliance of 7 heroes was able to defeat evil. After the battle, each of them said what they wanted. The humans said they wanted a large piece of fertile land. 3 human heroes founded 3 new states in the new world. The elf wished to possess the life force of the forests and received the elven forest. The dwarf said he wanted the power of fire and stone. He received the underground world of the dwarves. The orc decided that the swamp forests and barren lands would be his. These places became the domain of the orcs. And the hero Marvan said, with a sarcastic smile, that he wanted them to keep their oaths written in blood on their chests. After these words, he disappeared. The kingdoms created by the 6 heroes became what is now called the New World. 200 years have passed since then. The New World began to experience a golden age. However, time brought not only prosperity. The oaths made by the 6 heroes gradually faded. 200 years is enough time to forget the horrors and glory of the past. The oath was broken. The cracks became so large that everyone could see them. At that time, Hyun-woo looked at the landscape spreading out before him and realized that he had finally reached Saxon Castle. As he walked along the road to the castle, he looked at the players walking beside him. Seeing their armor, he thought that he hadn't even managed to reach level 20. However, on his way here, he had destroyed all the monsters that had crossed his path. His level was 16. He realized that the difference was much greater than he could have imagined. Well, no need to worry too much. First of all, 3 things are necessary for survival. These are gathering skills and the ability to distinguish between different ingredients. All this time, he had been doing nothing but hunting monsters, so his equipment had worn out quickly. If he got the chance, he would definitely learn how to repair equipment. At that moment, he heard a warrior shouting that adult users were invited to join a friendly guild. Another player shouted that level 32 warriors were invited to join a party. Someone shouted that all kinds of goods were for sale at the lowest prices. Someone shouted that they would buy any kind of potion. Someone was looking for a healer to go to the dungeon. Hyun-woo thought that the scale of Haruna was incredible. There were so many people here. Perhaps it was because of the location or the number of dungeons that it was so crowded. In Saxony, there is a working guild where you can choose a profession. By joining such a guild, you can quickly find the information you need. But he felt very uncomfortable in crowded places. Hyun-woo didn't know what to do. Should he look for a job now? Once he finds one, he will be able to get equipment and some skills that will make hunting easier. There are 12 professions in the New World. The first is a warrior. Then there are archers, mages, robbers, priests, and 7 other professions. If you look into the details, each of them has its own branches. Once your skills exceed certain conditions, you can advance. Of course, if he had another account, he could choose any profession. However, only one account can be linked to one person. Therefore, you need to think carefully before making a decision. Well, now he needs to get down to what he came here for. First, he needs to meet with Viscount Harveston. Soon, Hyun-woo arrived at the castle gates and was blocked by guards. He told them he had come to meet Viscount Harveston. Holding out the parchment, he said he thought they would let him pass after looking at it. Taking the scroll, the knight left, asking the young man to wait a moment. While waiting for the knight to return, Hyun-woo thought discontentedly that he had been there too long. At that moment, he saw a man with gray hair shouting that he was the one who had found the parchment. He asked menacingly if he had found anything unusual where the parchment had been. Hyun-woo thought that this was not how he had imagined Harveston. He showed him the plate with the inscriptions. Grabbing his head, the old man said that it was either God's will or the devil's work. Hyun-woo asked what he was talking about. He replied that Viscount Harveston had been searching for a tablet connected to this parchment for a very long time. Everyone who had been sent to search for it had not returned. The young man asked what kind of tablet it was. The old man replied that he only knew that the tablet was connected to the ruins found nearby. In any case, the Viscount had given up several years ago because he could not find the location of the stone slab. The Viscount went to the ruins with his knights. However, the information about the stone slab that the Viscount was so eager to find only appeared now that he was gone. Hyun-woo asked what he should do now. He replied that if the young man did not mind, why not deliver the chronicle to the Viscount himself? He should go right away, and he would be able to catch up with the Viscount. Surprised, Hyun-woo asked why him. The old man replied that his efforts would not be in vain. He would be rewarded. The young man shouted that they should give it to him. The system announced that the quest had been updated. He must meet the Viscount as soon as possible and show him the lithograph. Hyun rejoiced, expecting a good reward. Shaking his hand, the old man told him to leave immediately. Hyun replied that he couldn't do that. His equipment was in very poor condition, so if he encountered a monster on the way, he could be killed. Besides, he had no money to repair it. The knight said that the matter was very urgent, so he would personally take responsibility for the work, but he should leave as soon as his equipment was ready. Soon, Hyun-woo, accompanied by the knight, set off for the ruin. He was struggling to stay on the horse. The knight shouted for him to be careful. They needed to get to the ruins as soon as possible. Clinging to the horse with all his might, Hyun-woo shouted that this was his first time riding a horse. The system reported that his horse riding skill had been increased to level 3. He thought it was much better now. Now he understood the importance of skills. After a while, they spotted the Viscount, and the knight shouted that they had found the tablets. The Viscount, stunned, asked them to repeat themselves, unable to believe that such a thing was possible. Approaching Hyun-woo, he asked who he was. Was he the one who found the lithograph? He asked him to show it to him as soon as possible. Taking the plate in his hands, the Viscount shouted that it was exactly what he had been looking for. He asked Hyun-woo what his name was. The boy replied that his name was Ark. The Viscount said he couldn't even imagine how much he had helped. Therefore, Viscount Harveston would give him a reward for his work. He wondered what to ask for, maybe some unique equipment or just money. The Viscount said that, of course, any request must be commensurate with his achievement. His reward should be worthy of his deed. Hyun-woo thought for a moment about what that meant. The Viscount's answer was too ambiguous. Did he mean there was a limit to what he could ask for? As far as he knew, achievements weren't measured in numbers. What was he trying to tell him? Could it be the level of difficulty? However, he wouldn't be able to get even a single gold coin for that level. Could handing over the tablet be the end of the quest? Why was he sent here? Maybe he has another mission here. Besides, the quest itself mentioned a meeting with the Viscount, but it didn't mention handing over the tablet. Could this be a quest where the tasks change depending on his choices? Then he could get a different reward. He asked the Viscount if he could go with him. The Viscount shouted, "No way!" Hyun-woo replied that he thought he had the right to go with him. After all, he was the one who brought him the tablet. Hadn't he just promised him a reward worthy of his deed? Frowning, the Viscount replied that he was refusing him out of good intention. The cave they were about to descend into was unusual. A cruel demon lived there. Looking at him, Hyun-woo asked if the Viscount really intended to break his promise. Sighing heavily, the Viscount said that Ark really had to do it. Suddenly, Harveston coughed and started bleeding. Everyone rushed to help him. The guy shouted for them to let him handle it. He had extensive experience caring for the sick. Running up to the Viscount, Hyun-woo used his healing skill to save him. When the Viscount felt a little better, he sat down on the grass and carefully wiped away the blood. Hyun-woo said that the Viscount was very ill. How was he going to go into the cave in such a condition? Besides, there was no one else around who could take care of him. Angered, Viscount Harveston shouted furiously that he didn't need any help. Frowning, Hyun-woo replied that he didn't think so. He needed it. He could understand everything about his condition. At this rate, it would be difficult for him to move, not to mention wielding a sword. Was his pride really worth his life? Let him not worry about anything, and allow him to take care of him. He must simply accept it. Suddenly, the Viscount was stunned to see his own father sitting in front of him. He thought in shock, "Is that really my father?" He looked at Ark in bewilderment. The Viscount thought that for a moment he had seen the image of his father next to this stranger. After thinking for a moment, Harveston replied kindly to the young man. He would put his hope in Ark. The system announced that the quest had been updated. He must explore the ruins with Harveston to discover the secret of the tablet. If the Viscount died, the quest would automatically fail. Hyun-woo said, "Let's go." He decided that they must solve the mystery of the tablet together with Viscount Harvest. After a while, Hyun-woo, along with Harveston and accompanied by knights, set off for the cave. When they entered, the stunned boy saw a huge number of monsters with glowing eyes. They were sitting along the walls of the cave and glaring at the people who had entered. Looking around, Hyun-woo sighed and thought it was time to begin. Holding his sword in front of him, he ordered his soldiers to attack. Holding their shields in front of them, the armed knights rushed at the bloodthirsty monsters. Bearing their sharp fangs, the monsters roared furiously and charged forward. The knights and goblins clashed in a devastating battle, striking each other with blows. At that moment, the Viscount struck the floor with his staff and shouted, and a fiery storm erupted. In an instant, a huge deadly flame engulfed everything around them. It crushed everything in its path, destroying the bloodthirsty monsters. Sheathing his sword, Harveston told the soldiers that they would take a 10-minute break. Embers from the deadly flames were still flying through the air. Hyun-woo was shocked. Looking at the mountain of ash that remained from the terrifying monsters, he thought that the man was incredibly strong. He couldn't believe that the Viscount had been able to destroy a dozen monsters in an instant. The Viscount's guard is called Sylphid. Could NPCs really have such high levels? Even at level 50, it would be difficult to fight them. It had been 2 days since they entered the labyrinth. Hyun-woo was worried about how long the Viscount could hold out, considering that the road was becoming more and more confusing, and the monsters kept attacking. He was also very concerned about where the terrifying demon itself was dwelling. The Viscount was getting worse. Hyun-woo said that everything was fine. His illness was caused by his soul. If he was determined to overcome it, no illness would be able to harm him. He should remain as courageous as he was and not lose hope. The Viscount said that hearing these words really made him feel like he was gaining strength and that his illness was beginning to recede. But he understood that no matter how determined he was, he had almost no chance. Frowning, Hyun-woo asked why Harveston was saying that. The Viscount replied that his illness was not related to his soul. The young man asked in surprise if the Viscount really knew what was wrong with him. The Viscount asked Ark if he knew why he had come here with the knights in such a state. The reason was this place. It was the demon living here that had destroyed his father and placed a curse on it. The Viscount told him that, long ago, a tragedy had occurred in Saxony. A cruel demon from a distant continent had brought famine and disease to the kingdom. However, despite their best efforts, their clan was unable to defeat him. Therefore, after that incident, a curse was placed on his entire family. All of his descendants began to be overcome by a deadly disease. As soon as they turned 20, shocked, Hyun-woo asked how he was still alive. The Viscount replied that the reason he was still alive was because of his father. When he was born, he learned how to lift the curse. If the demon hiding in these ruins was destroyed, the curse would be broken. The place where evil lurked was sealed by ancient powers, and the tablet he had brought was the key. His father had put a lot of effort into it. He had managed to obtain the tablet, gather soldiers, and launch an attack. However, he had lost. But before his death, the father managed to inflict a severe wound on the demon. The curse weakened, which is why he was able to live to this age. The reason his illness is progressing is that the demon has regained its strength. Moreover, his 15-year-old son began to show signs of the disease, and he cannot allow his son to repeat his fate. Not for anything. Looking at Viscount Hyun-woo, he said confidently that his wish would definitely come true. Soon they reached a wall covered in green mold. They saw a small ledge where a piece of the slab was missing. Hyun-woo picked up the piece of stone and carefully put it back in place. As soon as he put the tablet in place, the wall began to rise slowly. Before them opened the entrance to the cave where the terrifying demon was supposed to dwell. They frowned and looked deep into the cave, and the Viscount said they had to go. But before they could take a step, a deadly sword whistled past the Viscount. He jumped aside in terror and screamed. Frightened, Hyun-woo shouted for the Viscount to be careful. A moment later, the blood of the slain knight splattered the cave wall. Hyun-woo stared at the scene in shock, his mouth agape. Harveston, stunned, frowned as he looked at the lifeless body. Struck down by the deadly blow, the knight crashed to the floor with a loud thud. His lifeless body rolled under the feet of the stunned Viscount, splattering the floor with blood. At that moment, the system informed Hyun-woo that the dungeon boss had appeared, Deborah, the weaver of distorted dreams. Armed knights rushed forward to attack the terrifying monster. With flashing eyes, Deborah shouted that they were fools who thought themselves fearless. They must have come here to die. The monster glared menacingly at the warriors. Frowning, the enraged Viscount glared at his enemy with fury. Looking at the terrifying creature, Hyun-woo was horrified by how huge it was. The army of knights stood before the monster, unable to move or approach it. The young man thought that the atmosphere was so terrible that it chilled him to the bone. Everyone froze, rooted to the spot, paralyzed with fear before the monster. At that moment, Harveston shouted for them not to be afraid. It was just a cowardly monster hiding in the ruins. Together, they could defeat it. Attack! The knights raised their swords. Looking at the warriors, the demon frowned and swung his huge sword. In an instant, Deborah brought his crushing sword down on the attacking warriors. Deadly energy flew toward the knights, scattering them in all directions. With an ominous cry, the demon released deadly lightning bolts at the knights' heads. In an instant, the lightning bolts turned into deadly flame. Swinging his sword in all directions, the terrifying monster crushed the knights, scattering them in all directions. Watching the demon, Hyun-woo thought that this monster was incredibly strong. The Sylphid knights, who seemed quite capable, were helpless. Could this really be the power of a demon? Screaming furiously, the demon delivered deadly blows, reducing the Viscount's army to dust. Suddenly, the boy saw deadly lightning bolts strike the demon. Turning around, Hyun-woo saw the Viscount's mages pointing their staffs at the demon. They released a deadly stream of electric flames at the monstrous demon. The electrical energy released by the mages surrounded Dobra with a crushing torrent. Struck by the deadly electric discharge, the demon fell to its knees, and the Viscount rushed into attack. He held up a magical scroll covered in magical formulas. The Viscount tore the scroll apart and shouted, unleashing a magical strike on the demon. The terrifying monster was shocked. Its health dropped to 36%. Hyun-woo realized that the demon had very little HP left. This was the effect of the magic scroll. Its HP had dropped significantly, meaning there was now a chance to destroy this terrifying monster. The demon screamed furiously. How dare they use their pathetic tricks against him? Now he would leave no one alive. Doba released streams of dark energy. The streams of demonic energy crashed down on the Viscount's army of knights. Hyun-woo, stunned, frowned and wondered what this unpleasant energy was. Under the influence of the demonic energy, the knights threw their weapons to the ground. The knights' eyes turned red. They lost their sense of direction and succumbed to panic. They screamed in fear, threw down their weapons, and did not know what to do next. The Viscount shouted for them to come to their senses. Goodness used a spell of confusion. The demon's terrifying eyes flashed, confusing the knights. The Viscount shouted at the magicians not to use magic. Instead, they should resist it. They had to strengthen their mental power to resist the demon. At that moment, the mages shouted that they couldn't deactivate the confusion magic. Cursing, Hyun-woo thought that his power was beyond explanation. If things continued like this, they would all die here. Enraged, Harveston shouted that it was simply impossible. Deborah was incredibly strong. Was he also going to join his ancestors? He was incredibly angry. With a sinister laugh, Deborah shouted for them to scream in despair. He shouted at the Viscount that he and his scum would die, just like all their ancestors. Clutching his fist tightly, Hyun-woo shouted for everyone to come to their senses. They must not listen to the demon's whispers. If they surrendered, the Harveston clan would be defeated again. The people they loved would die at the hands of the demon. They must not give up. They could not succumb to his charms. They were people with strong wills. The stunned Viscount Harveston listened to the young man's words and came to his senses. The young man shouted furiously that they had to win and released a healing energy. A stream of healing energy enveloped all the knights, and they began to come to their senses. The demon was furious. His eyes flashed menacingly at the young man. The knights asked what they had been doing all this time. They asked why they had been attacking each other and begged forgiveness for their unconscious action. The shocked Viscount asked Ark what he had just done, how he had removed the magic. The enraged Dobra shouted furiously, asking what the hell was going on and who this stranger was. Watching the warriors come to their senses, Hyun-woo thought happily that he had succeeded. The Viscount said he couldn't let his son suffer the same curse. He would never allow it to happen. The Viscount clenched his fists in rage. At that moment, Hyun-woo remembered his mother and realized that the Viscount's wish would surely come true. The system reported that the skill level of nursing had increased thanks to the care coming from the heart. The skill relaxes and revitalizes the patient's body and mind, increasing their dexterity. Sincere prayers for the patient have a blessing effect. The stunned young man was surprised that this was because he was sincere toward the Viscount. His feelings had influenced his skill. All the wounded knights became targets of his skill due to Deborah's curse control. This is why the ability to care for the sick was activated. The blessing effect was able to solve the problem. However, in addition to his energy and courage stats increasing by 40%, his other skills increased by 3.0. At that moment, Hyunwoo suddenly realized that he could complete this quest. The exhausted knights said they needed to rest, but Hyunwoo shouted, "Get up!" They were about to win. Even a demon couldn't break their fighting spirit. He would charge them with energy. They must not retreat, for they had fighting spirit and courage. They would surely become heroes who would go down in history. The knights shouted furiously for the demon to die and rushed into the attack. A torrent of crushing blows from the inspired knights rained down on Deborah. He screamed in rage. At that moment, the Viscount used the holy beam technique, and the demon's body glowed red. Coughing loudly and groaning, the demon fell to his knees, raising a cloud of dust. At that moment, Harveston drew his sword and lunged furiously at the demon. Approaching swiftly, the Viscount pressed his deadly sword against the monster's throat. He shouted furiously that Deborah had invaded Saxony hundreds of years ago. He cursed all his ancestors. He had brought a curse upon him and his son, and for that, he sentenced him to destruction. Let him go to the other world. The demon screamed, "Do you really think you can get away with this?" and reached out his hand. The Viscount looked in horror at the rapidly approaching demonic hand. The demon clenched his fist and grabbed Harveston. Hyunwoo screamed in terror. Deborah clenched her fist, and the Viscount screamed in excruciating pain, losing consciousness. But at that moment, healing energy descended upon the terrifying monster. Smirking, Deborah said it was ridiculous. Did he really think such tiny insects could defeat him? The enraged knights shouted, "Damn demon! They won't forgive him!" The enraged demon shouted for them to shut up and delivered a powerful blow. Knocked down by the crushing wave of energy, the knights fell to the floor and coughed. Releasing streams of demonic energy, the demon threatened to destroy them all. He clenched his fist tightly, holding Viscount Harveston inside. Drawing his sword, Hyunwoo rushed forward, shouting for the bastard to release the Viscount. He furiously attacked the enraged demon, hoping to land a blow. Swinging his sword, Deborah shouted furiously for them to know their place. Enraged, Hyunwoo thought that he couldn't fail this quest, no matter what. He had gone through a lot to get to this place. However, during the battle with the rats, he realized something. His opponent's gaze and breathing, the way his muscles tensed and relaxed. It was from this that he needed to calculate his opponent's movements. He knows that there are absolute levels in the game. However, this is the new world. The player's thoughts and actions must always change. The knights shouted, "Lord Ark!" At that moment, the demon lost sight of the guy and asked in surprise if he had disappeared. Shouting that he was there, Hyunwoo swung his sword to strike. He delivered a powerful blow to the fist-clenching Viscount Harveston's body. From the force of the blow, Deborah's fist opened, and the Viscount flew downward. Grabbing his head, the monster shouted furiously, "What a good diversionary tactic!" With eyes flashing menacingly, the enraged Deborah shouted, "Damn stranger!" Standing next to the demon, Hyunwoo caught the Viscount's body before he fell. He shouted furiously that the monster would not succeed. They would not give up. Enraged, Deborah released powerful streams of crushing energy. Holding the Viscount's body in his arms, Hyunwoo jumped aside to avoid the attack. Becoming increasingly enraged, the demon screamed in fury and delivered blow after blow. He swung his arms wildly, destroying everything in his path. Debris flew in all directions, but Hyunwoo managed to dodge the deadly blows without letting go of the Viscount. Deborah screamed in rage that he was a damn bastard. His eyes flashed terrifyingly. At that moment, the knights shouted, "Look over there! Even a stranger is fighting for Harveston. They must protect them at all costs." Shouting furiously, the knights rushed to attack the demon. The terrifying demon swung his sword and released a powerful, crushing flame. The deadly fire rained down on the heads of the attacking knights, engulfing them in flames. But despite the fiery attack, the knights did not stop, and, with cries of rage, moved toward the enemy. Soon, Hyunwoo could see nothing but a curtain of fire covering the knights. A few moments later, a terrifying demon emerged from the raging flame. With his sword raised, he approached Hyunwoo with the Viscount in his arms, ready to strike. The young man looked in horror at the demon, who screamed furiously for him to go to hell and swung his sword. He realized he had no way out. He didn't have the skills to help himself. Besides, he didn't have much HP left. Where were the Sylph Knights, known for their power and strength? Somehow, Deborah's HP hadn't decreased at all. He shouted at the mages to focus on their magic. They had to protect the Viscount at all costs. He remembered the Viscount's words that he couldn't let the curse be passed on to his son. No way. Raising their staffs above their heads, the mages used psychological exchange magic, distortion. Suddenly, Hyunwoo opened his eyes and realized he was lying on a stone floor in an unfamiliar place. He cried out in fear, asking where he was. Jumping to his feet, he thought that if this was distortion, then he could use it. He could send anyone anywhere. The mages had saved his life. He thought he was almost certain that the Viscount was somewhere nearby. He rushed off to search for him. When he found Haviston Hyunwoo, he shouted for the Viscount to come to his senses. Wasn't he supposed to avenge his father? The Viscount replied that he was mistaken. His words no longer gave him strength. All the soldiers must have been taken by Deborah. He would not be able to protect his son. The young man shouted for the Viscount to come to his senses. What was he talking about? The Viscount replied that he would soon die. He tore off his amulet and said he had a request. He had failed to protect his son. Forgive him for not being able to do so. Make sure to pass this on to his son. But Hyunwoo shouted for the Viscount to come to his senses. He couldn't just give up like that. He had to hold on. He couldn't lose to Deborah. Did he really want to give up like this? The Viscount had to take care of his son. He had promised him. Hyunwoo looked at Harveston in horror. A memory of the accident in which he lost his father came flooding back. A bright flash lit up the Viscount's body. The stunned young man sat nearby. He thought it was just a character dying in a game. Why did it hurt so much? It was just an NPC. Hyunwoo promised that he would fulfill the Viscount's request, no matter what it took. The system informed him that he had received the blood necklace of Viscount Harveston. The quest had been updated. He had to give it to the Viscount's son. Hyunwoo was stunned and thought the Viscount had died. He didn't know what to do next, but the quest said that it would fail if he died. His mission was to explore the ruins and prevent the Viscount from dying there. As soon as Deborah appeared, the conditions of the quest changed. It turns out that the quest has more tasks. Seeing Hyunwoo's glowing eyes, he thought in horror. Could Deborah have made it here? But at that moment, he realized that they were just small monsters and activated his cat spirit skill. But nothing happened. The eyes continued to glow and stare at him from the darkness. The guy was shocked and didn't understand why his skill wasn't working on them. At that moment, a cat girl came up to him and said that it smelled like rats here. The guy was amazed to see a huge number of cats behind her. Suddenly, the girl rushed at him and screamed that she was sure it was his clothes that smelled like the creatures they hated most. But how could the guy use the cat-like ability? She didn't understand how that was possible. The girl said her name was Jana. Hyunwoo replied that his name was Ark. Surprised, Jana asked if he was human. Hyunwoo replied that he was, of course. She told him to stop making such a silly face and follow her. There was a place she needed to go. Hyunwoo didn't understand why she was being so sudden. This girl, she has a cat's tail and ears. Could she be a hybrid creature? I wonder where she wants to take him. He could probably run away. However, he felt that he would regret it if he didn't follow her, although she has more important things to do. Looking at the cats, Hyunwoo thought they were cute. After a while, the girl shouted loudly that she was back. Several more cat people came out to meet her. Seeing them, Hyunwoo was puzzled. They were also surprised to see a human and shouted at Jana to ask what was going on. Ignoring their cries, Jana raised her hands and told everyone to pay attention. At that moment, Hyunwoo saw a fat old cat man sitting on a rock. He asked where Jana had been. The girl replied that she had brought an interesting person. Hyunwoo didn't understand what kind of place this was, a cosplay country or something. The girl said that this was the moment they had been waiting for all along. He could become their truth seeker. The bewildered guy asked again, seeker of what? Seeker of truth. The older cat asked if he was really the truth seeker they had all been waiting for. Surprised, Hyunwoo asked what a truth seeker was. Frowning, the older cat asked if he meant to say he wasn't the one. Jana said she had seen it with her own eyes. This guy knows the ability of their clan. He had used the cat spirit. The elder cat asked where he had learned the cat spirit. Frowning, Hyunwoo replied that he had no idea who they were, so he had no desire to answer. They brought him here, and that was all they could tell him. How rude. The elder replied as follows. The boy was disappointing him. He couldn't hide his excitement at the thought of the truth seekers they had been waiting for so long. They were a race of hybrid beings, descendants of the hero Maban. He was the elder of the Hassan Mausoleum. The guy thought he was sure that all hybrid creatures in the New World were half-wolves. However, here there was a cat race. The elder asked Hyunwoo if he would mind telling him where Ark had learned this technique. He replied that he had mastered this skill after earning the title of Mouse Master. The cats whispered among themselves, wondering if this guy had really defeated the Black Mouse Bear. Hassan said that since ancient times, Mouse Master had been a well-known title. It was awarded to valiant people who destroyed the Black Mouse Bear, but all of them died except Deborah. He replied that he did not know whose henchman he was, but the armor he wore was made from the skin of a black mouse bear. The elder frowned and asked if there was a tablet there at the time. The young man took out a fragment of the tablet and showed it to the elder, Hassan. The cats cried out that he had finally arrived, the seeker of truth they had been waiting for. He shouted, "No! What the hell are they talking about? A seeker of truth." The elder explained that this underground temple had originally belonged to them. However, one day Deborah came here and took their place. They became prisoners of this prison. Dazed, Hyunwoo thought, is this really a prison? So there's no way to escape from these ruins. The elder said that Deborah was afraid they would escape, so he locked them here. He also assigned a black mouse bear as a guard. The key was the stone tablet. Surprised, Hyun-woo said he didn't understand why he should be afraid of them. As far as he knew, he possessed incredible strength. Hassan replied that there were many reasons, but the most important one was that they were the heirs of the hero Mabon. The young man asked who this hero Mabon was. Upon hearing the name, the cats fell to their knees. The elder explained that long ago, there were 7 heroes who saved the world when a crisis broke out on the continent. They were among the strongest warriors on the continent. For a long time, warriors who revered the hero Mabon had followed in his footsteps. Their race called such people seekers of truth and helped them follow the right path. To become a seeker, one had to pass several stages. One of them was to catch 10,000 mice. However, the main condition was to destroy their worst enemy, the black mouse bear. They believed that one day, a man like him would soon appear before them. He could be the last seeker of truth in the world. The system informed him that he had learned all the secrets of the tablet. He received a new status and could change his class. Hyun-woo was surprised to find a hidden class. He decided he needed to calm down. This was not a situation where he should be thinking. By choosing a secret class, he would be able to gain many more characteristics than with a normal class. In addition, he would be able to master special skills. If he fought other players, they wouldn't even suspect that he had unusual skills. It was a big risk and a great opportunity. If someone who wants to be a mage can find a hidden class related to magic, they will have an advantage. But will this work with a warrior? He doesn't know what this hidden profession is, and he doesn't know its origin. In this game, you can't get another character. At that moment, Hassan asked what he would do. Would he inherit the power of the hero Mabon? The guy thought that the elder had said that Mabon was a legendary hero. He decided to trust him and agreed to inherit the power. At that moment, Hyun-woo felt a powerful stream of light energy envelop him. The system announced that Ark had changed his class to the Hidden Dark Walker. The elder said that he could see in the boy's eyes that he was ready to accept the power and live as a seeker of truth. He definitely liked that. Seekers of truth had been their good friends since ancient times. From now on, Ark was also their friend. The elder asked how he had managed to defeat the Black Mouse Bear and deliver the stone tablet. The system announced that Elder Hassan had given him the title of Cat Knight, and he received special characteristics. Cat Spirit was improved, Cat Eye was obtained. The guy was angry. With the acquisition of a new class, characters receive at least 30 bonus attribute points. But why haven't his stats changed much? He got almost nothing. This is too much. The elder said that seeing tears in his eyes, he thought that Ark must be so happy to become a minion of the hero Mabon. He replied, "What the hell?" He agreed to become a seeker of truth, but nothing had changed. The cat said maybe he really needed it, the legacy of the hero Mabon. Hyun-woo realized that he knew it all along. The new class had not been completed. He asked where this legacy was. Picking his nose thoughtfully, the elder calmly replied that it was with Deborah. The shocked guy cursed silently. The new world could stop messing with him now. At that moment, Deborah was fighting the knights, destroying them one by one. Soon, no one was left alive, and the demon wandered among the ruins and fallen bodies. Looking around at the dead, he realized that Harveston and the stranger had disappeared. At that moment, Deborah realized that the magical tablet had disappeared along with them. Enraged, he shouted in a frenzy, "Where did the key go? Who dared to take it?" Suddenly, the demon heard the secret door to the cave open, and someone enter. Before him, clenching his fists in rage, stood Hyun-woo, ready to fight. The demon asked how he had managed to get in. He had thought that it was the stranger who had taken the key. Swinging his crushing sword, Deborah shouted furiously, "Where is the tablet?" Clenching his fists in rage, Hyun-woo shouted that he would never leave Deborah alone. He shouted furiously, and a huge cat with bared fangs roared at the enemy. Deborah, stunned, shouted, and his body glowed with bright energy. The sword, ready to strike the young man, trembled in the hands of the shocked demon. The demon's body began to dissolve into the air, and he screamed in rage as loud as he could. A few moments later, Deborah dissolved into the air, turning into small clumps of energy. Frowning, Hyun-woo realized that the illusion had disappeared. He was stunned by what he saw. Standing before him was a small green monster, screaming furiously about how he had managed to do it. Where did this human get the abilities of the cat race? Because of this stranger, his illusion had disappeared. Moreover, he couldn't use his magic because he was under the cat's intense gaze. He had already thought that he had finally found the key and would be able to escape from these damn ruins. Glaring at the enraged monster, Hyun-woo wondered what kind of little bastard this was. The elder said that this creature had gained the power of nightmares. It was a gremlin. The temple was attacked while everyone was asleep. The reason for its hatred was that they were its natural enemies. They immediately realized who it was. However, it was too late. Deborah was a creature created by the gremlin. He created it using the magic of nightmares and then hid inside it. He feels sorry for them, but it seems his companions died fighting illusion. Dazed, Hyun-woo thought that it meant the death of all the people who were with him, all because of a little rat with such incredible power and skills. For this little rat, everything that was happening was just a game, and people paid with their lives. The enraged gremlin shouted at Hyun-woo, asking who this stranger was. Jana said he was just a cowardly rat. Didn't Ark understand that by now? The enraged gremlin shouted at the girl to answer how this stranger ended up in prison. She replied that this stranger was a seeker of truth. He was the true owner of the power he possessed. The small, nasty gremlin, having lost his power of illusion, looked pathetic. Standing against him was an army of cat people led by Hyun-woo, the seeker of truth. Frowning, the elder looked at the gremlin and said that the fight was over. "It's over, rat." The gremlin clenched his teeth in rage and looked at him with hatred. He shouted furiously, "Who do they think they are?" He tried again to release Deborah. A demon appeared in the air and screamed furiously, releasing streams of energy. In an instant, he unleashed a raging, deadly fire upon the cat race. The devastating flames engulfed Hyun-woo and the cat people standing nearby, but they all stood there, unmoving. Hyun-woo thought it wasn't hot at all. He felt nothing. It all made no sense, because it was all just an illusion. He had firmly promised the Viscount's son that he would fulfill the promise he had made to his father. The shocked gremlin screamed that his power wasn't working. Impossible. How could this be? The man seeking the truth is too strong. He must destroy him. In an instant, the frightened gremlin rushed to flee. As he ran, he thought that they would never catch him. The illusion of invisibility. That way, he would be able to hide. Suddenly, he felt the cats catch up to him and dig their sharp claws into him. The shocked gremlin screamed in horror. Smirking, Hyun-woo replied that it smelled like a stupid rat. The gremlin screamed for them all to go to hell. Hyun-woo told him to shut up and delivered a deadly blow. A few moments later, only shreds of dissipating energy remained of the nasty monster. The system reported that he had sent Deborah to eternal rest. His level had been raised. He successfully completed the quest and received new items as a reward. The first was a red nightmare robe. The second item Hyun-woo received was an engraved hand mirror, and the third item was a sphere of 5 colors. At that moment, Hyun-woo said that it was all over. Viscount. May the earth be his bed, and he in turn promises to fulfill his promise. The delighted cat people joyfully shouted that they were all free. Finally, liberation. The seeker of truth had saved their entire race from prison. The elder thanked Hyun-woo and said that they had finally been able to avenge Deborah. He handed him a gift from their clan. The system announced that Ark had received a new item. The elder said that Ark was now their hero. They were grateful to him for rescuing them from prison and punishing Deborah. As they saw him off, the cats thanked the Cat Knight for everything and wished him a safe journey. Sighing, Hyun-woo said that now, all he had left to do was meet the son of Viscount Harveston. He decided that there was no point in being sad and dwelling on the past. It had been difficult, but he had achieved a lot. The item he received from the cats was a pair of leather gloves called Cat's Paws. They were intended only for the Cat Knight. In battle, sharp claws appeared. The guy thought that the gloves Hassan gave him were quite useful. He put them on, and immediately deadly cat claws appeared on his fingers. Next was the red cloak of nightmares, a cursed cloak created by the nightmares of millions of people. It can be used to curse an enemy, causing them to see nightmares. An engraved night mirror, the starting item for the quest, which will be available from level 40. And finally, the sphere of 5 colors, a sphere that contains part of the power of the hero Maban. He thought about the nightmare mantle and how it had a downside. It reduced his stats, but he would become invulnerable for 10 seconds. Looking at the items, Hyun-woo decided that he definitely deserved the legacy of the hero Maban. Taking the sphere in his hands, he decided it was time to begin and placed it against his forehead. At that moment, the sphere flashed and bright light energy spread out from it. The system announced that a new skill had been acquired, Dark Blade. A sword that has become part of the darkness is capable of delivering a devastating blow that ignores any physical defense. Skill, Summon Devil. He can summon 3 low-class demons, dwelling between the world and the underworld at the same time. After some time, Hyun-woo arrived at the castle to meet the son of Viscount Harvest. Seeing the bloody amulet, the boy realized that his father had died. His body trembled. He thanked Ark for bringing back the surviving knights. He asked if his father had died honorably. Hyun-woo replied, yes. He was braver than all the others, and, above all, he fought for their honor. The young man thanked Ark and smiled sadly. He said that Ark had taken care of his father. During the expedition to the ruins, he also supported him until the very end, and he risked his life to fulfill the promise he made to his dying father. Furthermore, he showed incredible courage and defeated Deborah. He saved the soldiers and his own life. These are incredible achievements that are priceless. Hyun-woo thought he understood everything. Harveston's son said that he had no intention of giving Ark any reward. The fact that his father had entrusted him with the necklace meant that he considered Ark a true friend. He believed that Ark felt the same way, and his father's friend was also his friend. He couldn't give him anything. However, he could swear here and now, if he ever needs his help, Even if they are on opposite sides of the continent, he will rush to him without hesitation. Frowning, Hyun-woo thought that he had said so directly that he would give nothing. But with such passion in his words, he made an excuse. He thought the difficulty level was E+. Of course, he had appeared unexpectedly while receiving a hidden quest, but he couldn't get any reward even after completing a difficult quest. Did that make any sense? As Hyun-woo walked out of the castle doors, he suddenly heard someone yell at him to stop. Startled by the surprise, the guy saw a man heading toward him. Standing before him was the captain of the guard, frowning. Hyun-woo was surprised to see him. The captain grabbed his sword, and the guy thought something bad was about to happen. Why did he grab his sword? Did the captain of the guard want to attack him? Had he said something wrong? But he hadn't. Hyun-woo didn't understand. Turning around, he saw that the Viscount's son was looking at him through the window. He didn't understand why the Lord was looking at him, and what he had done to deserve it. Was it all because he couldn't save his father? But he also wanted Harveston to live. At that moment, the captain of the guard ordered everyone to fire a salute in honor of the hero of Saxony. The boy was amazed that he had called him the hero of Saxony and ordered a salute. He looked at the Lord in surprise, who smiled and gave him a thumbs up. Exhaling, Hyun-woo realized that no one was going to attack him. He thought that the NPCs in this game were all the same, all of them. Strict, but at the same time, very open. Hyun-woo smiled. He came to the conclusion that he had chosen the wrong profession. He didn't want to hunt in a party. He didn't like it when a fight broke out over a single dropped item. Even if it was a little more difficult, it was better to hunt alone. He would prefer a warrior class, or a thief who can quickly find an enemy's weak spots, or a mage who can take someone down with a single blow would also be pretty good, but they shine in parties. Although warriors don't have any skills to brag about, their basic endurance and strength are quite high. On top of that, they have bonuses such as immunity. Without exaggeration, this is the best class for solo play. However, Dark Walkers are closer to thieves than warriors. A Dark Walker is someone who walks at night. He thought about it as soon as he heard the name. Thieves have bonuses to dexterity, intelligence, and luck. It's better to be a full-fledged thief. Agility is fine. It affects attack speed, dodging, and critical hits. But what is this luck stat? It's not clear whether you end up a thief or a mage, some kind of multi-character. Sounds nice, but in reality, of course, he'll get a plus 60 to his stats. That's twice as much as other classes. No matter how you look at it, you'll have to invest in dexterity, intelligence, and luck. But there's no one to blame. He got himself into this by choosing a hidden class. Hyun-woo smiled. No, it's just a hidden class. If you use the class's advantages correctly, it will turn out well. If he uses the demon summoning skill, he'll be able to play solo. There's nothing to lose. He'll give it a try. Maybe he'll get someone useful. Holding his hand out in front of him, he shouted the summoning spell. In an instant, dark streams of energy swirled in front of him. From the depths of the dark stream, a bright red spot appeared and grew larger. As the red light approached, a skull with a glowing red eye became visible. Excited, Hyun-woo stared in amazement at what had appeared before him. It was a skeletal skull with red flames in its empty eye sockets. The darkness dissipated, and the skull crashed onto the grass in front of Hyun-woo. Spinning and bouncing, the skull rolled across the grass and hit a tree trunk. The system reported that it was the skull of an unnamed low-ranking deceased from the other world. It has no special characteristics. However, it is unwaveringly loyal to its master, who saved it from the other world. Looking at the undead creature in bewilderment, Hyun-woo shouted furiously, "What is this?" It's a joke. Did he really summon this empty-headed skull? If the skull appeared, then the rest of the body must be here too. He raised the skull above his head and shouted, "Where is your body, you worthless skull? He will find it. He will definitely find it." Falling to his knees in despair, Hyun-woo said, "But why did he suffer for several months catching mice? He ate soup and lost consciousness. He didn't even have a profession, and now he had Maban's inheritance and the draft. This skull was worthless. Did he sin in a past life?" At that moment, the skull rolled toward him and pressed against his hand. Angered, the guy pulled his hand away and sent the skull flying far to the side. After placing the skull on a tree, Hyun-woo decided to use his second call, hoping for a better result. A bat filled with hatred appeared before him. It was a low-level mouse that had been tormented in the underworld. Because of the bullying, it was filled with hatred for the whole world. Even its owner couldn't fully trust it. Hyun-woo was stunned that it was also a loser. He read about her hatred and that he couldn't trust her, and with a sigh, he asked why he always got all the trash. But he decided to see what else was in this sewer. An egg appeared in front of him, which high-level demons enjoy eating. Looking at everything that appeared after the summoning, the guy laughed nervously. He decided that if he couldn't avoid it, he might as well enjoy it. It's complicated. He wanted to give up. After thinking about it, he decided that he could throw the skull at his enemies. Nothing had gone according to plan with Haruna. Hyun-woo wondered what to do. He logged out of the game and went to work. When Hyo-sun saw him, she asked why he was covered in bruises. He was a little late. The boss would be down soon. He replied that he would be careful not to listen to her nagging anymore. The girl asked if he was working overtime again. Hyunwoo replied that he wasn't. On the contrary, he had lightened his schedule. She asked why he was so sleepy if he had so much free time. Hesitating, Hyunwoo replied that he was actually playing a game at home. He used to play games like crazy all the time. Instead of going to school, he hung out at computer clubs. To be honest, he spent entire days there, but he was confronted with harsh reality. He might not have another chance to play like that. He thought that he was so into the game that he sometimes forgot to hand in his report. The odds in the competition are 200 to 1, the probability that he will pass. But he wants to play a little more before the test is over. He would like to complete New World, but no, he can't. He won't be able to. The surprised girl asked what the game was called. Smiling, Hyunwoo asked if she really wanted to play. He replied that it was New World. Returning to New World, Hyunwoo reached the entrance to the Shadow Forest on the border of Saxony. Wielding his sword, he destroyed the monsters that crossed his path. It was a harpoon mud monster. The system informed him that his level had increased. As a reward, he received an item called iron ore. He thought that if he sold this item, he could make some good money. Great, he should get more of these. His HP and equipment durability were quite high. He decided that he didn't need to return to Saxony and would venture a little deeper. The harpoon's body was made of mud, so it could be destroyed with a sword, but the creature had a lot of HP. Fortunately, it was slow, so everything went smoothly. But there were no more monsters like that in sight, so he didn't get his hopes up too high. Suddenly, Hyunwoo sensed a strange presence and saw glowing eyes. The guy realized in horror that they were bloodthirsty wolves, and there were 5 of them. He realized that going further into the forest without any information was a mistake. These terrible wolves are different from ordinary ones. Besides, the sun is setting. After sunset, the night monster's abilities increased by 30%. It was easy to deal with Harpoon, and he let his guard down. At that moment, the 5 terrifying predators surrounded the young man from all sides. Gritting his teeth in anger, Hyunwoo realized that these creatures were fast and there was no escaping. Therefore, he had no choice. He had to win. Hyunwoo drew his sword. Charging forward, the guy started a fierce battle with the night predators. Swinging his sword and kicking with his feet, he desperately tried to resist the wolves. The bloodthirsty creatures circled around him, waiting for the right moment to attack. They lunged at him, trying to tear him apart with their sharp fangs and destroy him. The guy used all his skills to fend off the attack and strike the predators. Hyunwoo realized that he had to end the fight quickly. If he dragged it out, his HP would drop to 0. To attack, the guy used his cat's eye skill and prepared to strike. After checking the wolves' HP, he decided to start with those who had the least HP. He fiercely rushed to attack the terrifying monsters to destroy them. At that moment, a huge wolf attacked the guy from behind and knocked him to the ground. As he fell to the ground, Hyunwoo thought desperately that if he died now, his stats would be lost. Deciding that he had nothing to lose, Hyunwoo used his summoning spell, and a skull appeared before him. The guy screamed in desperation for the useless skull to do something. Flashing its red eyes fiercely, the skull rolled toward the wolf and clamped onto its paw. The bloodthirsty predator howled in pain and let go of Hyunwoo. The guy tried to crawl away. Barely able to stand, the stunned boy noticed another wolf flying toward him from the side. He stretched out his arm, and the skull jumped into his palm. Turning sharply, Hyunwoo thrust the skull into the wolf's gaping mouth. Shouting a battle cry, the guy released the bat and yelled for it to attack too. Hating the whole world, the bat rushed at the wolf. The system reported critical damage, plus 30% damage for the combined attack of the skull and the bat. The wolves were crushed and lay defeated on the ground. Hyunwoo breathed a sigh of relief. Taking out Kryden's pot, the guy started cooking food to restore his strength. He thought it had been a tough day. If he had delayed and not eaten, his strength and HP would have run out and he would have died. At that moment, a bat landed on his head, and Hyunwoo thought happily that he had survived. Next to him lay a skull, and Hyunwoo acknowledged that it was better than nothing. He said that thanks to the skull and the bat, he had survived. The skull smiled. 8 days had passed since Hyunwoo entered the Shadow Forest. During that time, his hunting methods had changed significantly. Contrary to expectations, the summoning proved to be useful. The bat was good for reconnaissance. If he sent it out on reconnaissance before moving forward, the risk of a surprise attack by monsters was minimal. It was also possible to assess the terrain and plan a route for further movement, while the skull rolled along the ground and bit the enemy's ankles, slowing them down. The bat obstructed their view. This increased the chances of victory. Distracted by their companions, the monsters did not see when Hyunwoo attacked. Suddenly appearing next to the monster, he delivered a deadly blow and destroyed the enemy. Thus, they gradually entered the forest deeper and deeper. And in this disgusting forest, he realized the true value of the Dark Walker. The special effect of the Walker adds 20 to all stats in the dark. After sunset, the stats of night monsters increase by 30%, and his stats increase if he enters a dark place during the day. Therefore, He can hunt monsters that are too tough for players of his level. He also has a very useful skill, Hide, which also came in handy here. It won't work if he's already been spotted, but if used correctly, he can take a breather even in a place swarming with monsters. The guy saw the Reaper. It was a local boss of level 50. He realized that no matter how many buffs he got from the Dark Walker, he was no match for the Reaper. So he chose to hide behind a tree, hoping that the monster would leave and not notice him. But the main problem was not the monsters at all. While he was peeking to see if the Reaper had left, the monster came up behind him. The stunned boy saw the deadly scythe fly past him. Turning around in horror, Hyunwoo realized that the terrifying Reaper had spotted him. Flashing its yellow eyes furiously, the monster prepared to attack the boy. Using his stealth skill, he quickly hid from the monster's sight. Having lost sight of him, the priest moved on, and Hyunwoo breathed a sigh of relief. He waited quietly in his hiding place until the priest had gone far enough away. The Shadow Forest was a hunting ground. Thanks to the Dark Walker effect, he could hunt monsters that were much higher level than him. Monsters with a level difference of 5 or more from the player's level gave extra experience points. In addition, they dropped a lot of items. Even ordinary shoes and a hat cost 50 silver coins in the store. He would rather put up with their foul smell than spend the money. He was worried that his equipment was wearing out quickly. He considered learning the repair skill, but the problem was elsewhere. There was no decent food in this damn forest. If he had known that, he would have brought more normal bread with. Looking at Hyunwoo's wide eyes, he decided that if he ate something like that, he would die for sure. After thinking about it, he summoned an egg from the other world. Since he had summoned creatures, they could eat too. And if they disappeared, he could summon them again, so they could be used endlessly to test food. He put the pot on the stove, threw in the ingredients, and waited for it to cook. The system reported that the survival cooking was successful. However, everything had been absorbed by the egg from the other world. There was no reaction on the egg. He couldn't find out what the effect was without trying the dish. He was stunned that the egg had absorbed it. It had not become a component of the dish. He now had no idea what had happened to his food. At that moment, Hyunwoo's gaze fell on a skull jumping nearby. He told it to try what was in the pot. The skull frowned and clenched his jaw. Beads of sweat ran down his bones, but he finally made up his mind and jumped into the pot of stew. At that moment, there was a flash of lightning. The system reported that the skull had suffered serious damage and had been summoned back. Resummoning is available in 24 hours. Since the skull was forcibly returned to the other world, the summoner receives 25 damage. A soup with a terrible taste was prepared. One sip is enough to cause enormous damage. It is recommended to give it to an enemy whom he hates. The guy thought that, as expected, even if the summoned creature tries the soup, the recipe will be added. It is still possible to test the effect, so it doesn't matter who eats the dish. Trembling all over, the bat frowned, realizing that she was also in danger. The delighted guy thought that, thanks to the summoned creatures, he no longer had to risk his life. After dipping into the soup Hyunwoo had prepared, the bat squeaked. The system reported that the bat had been summoned back. Hyunwoo repeated the process again. The system reported that the salad was made from suspicious herbs. Although it looked suspicious, it accelerated regeneration over the next 7 weeks, plus 50 to luck. Next time, the guy mixed rotten meat and the herbs he had gathered. The skull and the bat frowned as they watched the process, trembling all over. The guy asked why they were trembling. They didn't want their master to die. At that moment, the bat flew high into the air. Watching it fly away, Hyunwoo said discontentedly, the flea flew away after all. He canceled the summoning and immediately summoned the bat again. It appeared again. Frowning, Hyunwoo said that the mouse was very bold. Therefore, he would try 3 times in a row. Grabbing the bat, Hyunwoo dipped it into what he had prepared for the test. Suddenly, the bat begged for mercy. It cried out, "Master, stop!" The guy was shocked to hear that the bat could talk. The system reported that thanks to the survival cooking effect, the bat's characteristics had improved. He realized that although it was not easy, if he fed the summoned creatures the right food, their characteristics would improve. The guy asked if the mouse had the ability to talk, and if it wanted to talk to him. The mouse screamed, "What nonsense!" He asked because he really didn't know if it wanted to talk or not. They feel taste and pain just like their master. It's better to die than to keep eating this slop. For the record, this is not a rebellion. She is merely defending her right to survive. Looking at the skull, Hyunwoo asked if the skull thought so too. The skull shook its head. The mouse screamed furiously, "Traitor!" and flew into the air. Hyunwoo said that if she chirped, he would double the amount of food. If she doesn't behave properly in the next battles, there will be no food. There will be twice as much food to get in the way. He would complain 10 times more about food. He asked if the mouse and the skull understood. He felt sorry that he had to feed them with who knows what, but what could he do? It helps the summoned grow, and he wouldn't have to risk eating it himself. If he didn't use this method, the hero Mobin would be disappointed. He thought that if food had an effect on the mouse and the skull, then perhaps the egg would also grow stronger. Upon returning to the city, Hyun-woo laid out everything he had gathered in the forest on the counter. The shopkeeper said there was nothing decent there. The guy replied that these things weren't easy to find nearby. The seller said, okay, but only because he was a regular customer at the store, he would give him 5 gold coins and 40 silver coins. But Hyun-woo replied that he wanted 5 gold coins and 50 silver coins. Smiling, the salesman said that the guy wouldn't let a penny slip through his fingers. That's why he liked him. Leaving the store, Hyun-woo thought that in the new world, prices varied from store to store in the same city. That's why people go to different stores to buy cheaper and sell more expensive. But now, he only uses this store. From his experience in Harun Village, he understood that if they became friends, the prices would change. If you are friendly, you can get a 10% profit from buying and selling, and sometimes as much as 30%. When he left Harun, he had about 60 gold coins, and now he has twice as many. The biggest expense in the new world is repairing equipment. He gets food by cooking for survival. Repairs cost half as much thanks to the Viscount's kindness, but it was time to leave Saxony. Therefore, he needed to learn repair skills. When he saw Thomas, Hyun-woo waved to him and shouted that they hadn't seen each other in a long time. The guy said he hadn't seen him for a couple of days and asked when Ark had returned. Hyun-woo replied that he had returned a couple of hours ago. He asked how his wounds were after the fight with Deborah. He replied that they hadn't healed yet, but didn't prevent him from working. Hyun-woo said he was lucky. Watching Hyun, the players were surprised who this player was who had become so friendly with the NPC. Soldiers are not very friendly with players. Hyun-woo asked if he knew a blacksmith who taught his craft. Thomas replied that he knew Norton. He teaches how to repair equipment, but he could go to the castle. The old man there would fix everything for cheap. Why bother learning? Hyun-woo replied that he was thinking of going on a long journey in a couple of days. The soldier replied, well, yes, he's a stranger. Then before he leaves, he should visit the Viscount and stop by their barracks. The players were stunned. How did this guy know the Viscount? How did he become friends with him? And who was this high-ranking officer? After a while, Hyun-woo went to Norton's smithy and said he wanted to learn repair skills. Frowning, the blacksmith looked at the guy suspiciously and grabbed his arm. Surprised, Hyun-woo asked what Norton was doing. The blacksmith replied that he couldn't learn. Seeing the confusion in the boy's eyes, the blacksmith said that he was probably unaware. Not everyone can learn repair skills. For a stranger to learn how to work with tools, he needed strength and experience. If you swing a hammer carelessly, you could break the equipment. Besides, warriors are taught to work with metal, while merchants and alchemists are taught to work with leather and fabric. At that moment, Hyun-woo realized that there was a limit to repair skills. That's why people don't fix things themselves. Hitting himself on the head, the boy thought he should have chosen to be a warrior. The blacksmith said that with a set of tools, you could repair equipment 5 times anywhere. Would he like to try? The basic set was for ordinary equipment. The advanced set was for magical equipment. The magical set could repair rare and high-level equipment. Seeing the price of the set, Hyun-woo asked for a discount. The blacksmith said no. There were many people around who repaired equipment for half the price. He barely earned enough to buy bread, but if the guy buys in bulk, he'll get a small discount. Hyun-woo asked how much. The blacksmith replied that he would give a 5% discount for 100 tool sets. Leaving the smithy, Hyun-woo looked around and thought he could team up with the players. But he didn't want to get involved with people. At that moment, a better idea came to him. Arriving at the castle, Hyun-woo fell to his knees before the Lord and cried out pitifully for help. The Lord asked what had happened to Ark. He told him to say whatever he wanted. He would do anything. The guy explained that he had gathered some friends for a long journey and was responsible for buying everything they needed, but he had accidentally ordered too much. When he realized his mistake and wanted to cancel the order, it turned out that the seller had already prepared everything and he had to pay. He told his friends, but they simply ran away. The Lord was shocked that they had betrayed Ark and run away. Hyun-woo replied that he didn't blame them. It was all his fault. Sighing, the Lord said that Ark was too kind and asked how he could help. The guy replied that he needed a portable toolkit. The Lord said that even though there was a blacksmith in the castle, they bought them when they went on military campaigns. He would buy everything. If they added another 100 high-level items, the seller would not lose any money. Saying that he was very sorry, Hyun-woo thought, that the discount for a bulk purchase was 5%, and for an order of 2,500 gold coins, that was 125 gold coins. He asked the Lord if this would be too much for him. The Lord replied that he shouldn't worry. He had already said that he would do everything to help him. The guy went to the blacksmith and said he would take 100 regular and advanced ones, deliver them to the Viscount's address. He reminded the blacksmith about the 10% discount. The blacksmith replied that this was absurd, but since he knew the Viscount, he would give him a special discount of 6%. Smiling, Hyun-woo replied that they would settle for 8%. That's 200 gold coins for the order. The blacksmith said 7% and not a penny more, and he had 2 conditions. First, the discount would not be in cash but in goods. He showed him the bill that needed to be paid. Second, they would not be able to do it. They didn't have enough materials to make all 200 sets right now. He should bring him an aid for making the sets. Frowning, Hyunwoo said that if he needed materials, he wouldn't have bought them. The blacksmith interrupted him, saying that he was a jerk, so he gave in and gave him 8%. And not to worry, the Viscount wouldn't find out. Ada is an item that only a skilled alchemist can obtain. He works with the alchemist Raymond, but he's sick and can't go get the Ida. He was just asking to be introduced to an adventurer, who he'd tell about the location of the Ida. The mineral Ark needs is a mineral that looks like a red mushroom. It can only be found in a cave in the Great Swamp. Hyunwoo had to go to the swamp. He promised to keep the location of this mineral a secret. After some time, he reached the Great Swamp and the entrance to the cave. Frowning, the guy wondered how long it would take to explore the cave. It seems like a waste of time. Hyunwoo shouted for him to come out, or he would feed him 100 times in a row. At that moment, a bat flew out and the owner cried out excitedly. The guy asked what was taking so long. The mouse replied that there was a man inside. He would be out soon. He looks like a stranger. He looks disgusting, even worse than the owner. The guy got angry and shouted at her to repeat herself. She probably wants to go to hell. At that moment, a man in shining armor emerged from the cave. Hyunwoo was stunned when he saw him. His eyes filled with blood, and his cheeks twisted with rage when he realized who was standing before him. He shouted questioningly, "Andel!" Turning around, the guy was surprised to see Ark. Hyunwoo remembered the first time he met Andel in Burma. Andel had said it was nice to meet him. Looking at Hyunwoo with a smile, the guy invited him to join their party. He wondered what would have happened if they hadn't met then. Andel then shouted at him to tell Ark to just stay where he was. He remembered when Andel had offered to die for him, and thought that if he hadn't been in such a hurry and had left the party. Hyunwoo remembered how, upon seeing that all his stats were in the red, he rushed to find Andel in Burma. Could it be that, because of those two, everything ended before it even began? Hatred boiled throughout Hyunwoo's body. He didn't want to destroy someone so badly yet. He stood facing his enemy, whom he dreamed of crushing, and decided what to do. Frowning, Andel said that he thought they had already met and joined a party. He must be Ark. Stunned, Hyunwoo angrily thought what a son of a bitch he was. He struggled to remember him. Looking at Hyunwoo, Andel said he wanted to meet him again. He apologized because he didn't know that when you die, your stats are taken away as a penalty. Later, when he found out, he went to Haroon's village, but he was already gone. He was worried that Ark had quit the game. Gritting his teeth in anger, Hyunwoo thought what nonsense this guy was talking about. Andel said he could see that Ark had gotten pretty far. He must have leveled up. He replied that he really wanted to quit the game, but was still playing. Looking Hyunwoo in the eyes, Andel said that it must have been a misunderstanding. Hyunwoo was stunned by this answer. His fists were clenched in anger. Smiling, Andel asked if Ark would go with him to the dungeon. He found this place by accident. It's a bit difficult to be here alone. If he gets a good item this time, he'll give it to Ark. Frowning, Hyunwoo wondered what he was thinking. He replied that he didn't want to form a party. Smiling, Andel replied that was fine. Then they would each go their own way. Leaving Andel, Hyunwoo entered the dungeon to find what he needed. At that moment, Andel used the magic scroll he had. Suddenly, Hyunwoo felt the magical effect of detection. He turned to Andel in shock. Andel said that Ark had level 32 stats. He couldn't restore everything he had lost at the beginning of the game. Angry, Hyunwoo shouted that it was inappropriate to use a detection scroll without the other person's consent. Smiling, Andel replied, "Sorry, they weren't in a party, so he checked his stats to make it easier to help him." He asked with interest if Ark had changed his profession. Hyunwoo thought he was a jerk. He must be planning to destroy him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stuck his nose into other people's business. If the Nightmare Mantle hadn't lowered his stats, he would have noticed everything. Now this jerk was looking down on him. He asked Andel if he was really a thief. The guy said yes, but he changed his profession to warrior and suggested Hyunwoo follow him. Watching him leave, Hyunwoo wondered what would have happened if he hadn't looked so defenseless. But Andel was confident that he would win, even if he suddenly attacked him from behind. Staring intently at Andel, Hyunwoo used his cat's eye skill. He saw that Andel's level was 43, strength 211, health 235, agility, experience, intelligence, and luck 15. The guy realized he was lucky. Andel is slow. He has experience destroying other players, but if another player got a chance, he could take revenge. At that moment, terrifying monsters burst out of the depths of the cave toward the guys. Clicking their huge teeth and growling fiercely, the monsters rushed into attack. Wielding his sword, Andel attacked the monsters. Watching him, Hyunwoo thought his movements were simple and crude, but they were strong. However, at level 43, it was impossible to clear the dungeon of man-eating monsters. Not everything depends on the strength of a character's attack and defense. The new light system won't work. This meant that if Andel attacked him, he could easily defeat him. After a while, they completely destroyed the man-eaters, leaving only clumps of energy behind. Taking out the vial, Andel said that compared to the difficulty of good items, there was nothing special about it. He wanted to help Ark. Looking at him, Hyunwoo thought that he was drinking this expensive potion and slowly recovering. At that moment, a blue glowing crystal suddenly appeared before them. Slowly rotating in the air, the crystal began to break into separate pieces. In a few moments, it turned into a huge golem with glowing red eyes. Looking at the monster, Hyunwoo couldn't understand why there was a golem in the cave of man-eaters. The enormous creature opened its huge mouth and screamed ferociously, "Eat!" In an instant, the huge stone golem was already reaching out its deadly hand toward Andel. The monster grabbed the boy and clenched its fist tightly. Andel screamed in terror. In the next instant, there was a powerful explosion. Debris flew everywhere. Shocked, Andel saw Hyunwoo strike the golem while flipping through the air. The huge golem crashed to the ground with a loud bang. Shards flew in all directions. At that moment, Andel furiously shouted the magic scroll, "Detection." The enraged golem rose to its feet. Raising its arms, it let out a furious cry. Exposing his sword, Hyunwoo rushed to attack the stone golem and struck it. The boy was shocked that the monster had only taken 1% damage. At that moment, the wounded Andel screamed in terror, "Ark, help me!" Looking at him, Hyunwoo said that Andel could heal himself, and then they would be able to defeat the golem. He directed healing energy toward the boy. Soon, the system informed Andel that his energy and courage had increased. The blessing effect had been obtained. Andel shouted that he was full of strength. The terrifying golem, its red eyes flashing menacingly, shouted, "Yes!" Swinging his sword, Andel shouted a warrior's cry and struck the monster with a powerful blow. In an instant, a huge wave of crushing energy engulfed the stone monster. The golem collapsed to the ground, losing some of the stones from its body. At that moment, the stunned Hyunwoo realized that it was a buff to the warrior's strength. He knew he had to become a warrior. The stone golem opened its huge mouth ferociously. It delivered a powerful blow to Andel, who barely managed to cover himself with his shield. The enraged stone golem continued to deliver crushing blows. After receiving several crushing blows, the guy screamed in terror. Suddenly, Hyunwoo felt a blow and flew to the ground with a crash. A moment later, he received another blow that drove him into the ground. Debris flew in all directions. Coughing, Hyunwoo lay on a pile of broken stones, trying to get up. A moment later, he was hit by another wave of crushing energy. Andel watched in shock as the golem delivered powerful blows to the ark. He thought it would be better. At that moment, the terrifying monster approached Hyunwoo's body. Reaching out a huge stone hand toward the young man, the golem screamed furiously, "Eat!" With a fierce cry, Andel rushed to attack the stone golem. Shouting, "Destroy!" he swung his sword and delivered a powerful crushing blow. Using the warrior's blow, the guy continued to strike furiously. The enraged monster screamed viciously. The golem's body was engulfed in crushing energy, but it still stood on its feet. Looking at it, Andel was stunned and asked in surprise if it was really not over yet. The stone monster still stood menacingly, its red eyes flashing. At that moment, Hyunwoo, screaming furiously, rushed at it, swinging his sword. He shouted that it was because of this bastard that he almost died, and delivered a powerful blow. From the crushing blow, cracks began to spread across the golem's stone body. In an instant, the stone monster crumbled into pieces and collapsed to the ground. Seeing that the stone monster had finally been defeated, Hyunwoo breathed a sigh of relief. Standing nearby was Andel, who was also struggling to catch his breath after the battle. At that moment, the stone golem evaporated, and objects fell at the boy's feet. To restore his strength, Andel took out a vial and drank several gulps of the potion. The guy stood in front of Hyunwoo, his eyes sparkling and smiling predatorily. Holding his sword in front of him, he smirked and said that Ark didn't look very good. Was he really that naive, or just a fool? He shouted furiously that Ark was an idiot and that he was finished. He wouldn't get out of there alive. Hyunwoo asked Andel what his goal was, the items that had fallen from the boss or him. The enemies glared at each other with hatred in their eyes. Crossing swords, they clashed in a devastating confrontation. No one wanted to give in. Gritting their teeth in anger, the men fought fiercely, striking each other with blows. Powerful streams of crushing energy flashed from the furious blows. Gritting his teeth in anger, Hyunwoo fought with all his might against Andel. Splashes of energy flew in all directions from the crossed swords. The men fought to the last. None of them were willing to give in. Holding his shield in front of him, Andel attacked Hyunwoo with deadly blows. The guy said with a smirk that Ark was better than he thought. He should have been defeated long ago. Smirking, he asked if Ark really believed that he would simply give him the items that had dropped from the dungeon boss. Hyunwoo replied that of course not. Andel asked in surprise if he knew that, and still followed him into the dungeon. He would just fall over laughing. Where did such idiots come from? Enraged, Hyunwoo shouted, "You bastard!" and fiercely attacked Andel. But the guy held his sword in front of him and blocked Hyunwoo's powerful attack. Smirking, Andel said that he had rushed at him recklessly, but it was useless. That wouldn't work on him. At that moment, Hyunwoo thought that the difference in level and strength was too great. Attack power can only be increased by raising one's level. It's over. The difference was too great to rely solely on ability. Without a 20% stat boost in the dark, he wouldn't even be a match for him. Andel shouted how long he could hold out. Using a burst of strength, he delivered a crushing blow. To dodge the blow, Hyunwoo jumped up. Andel shouted furiously that he was a cunning bastard. At that moment, he saw Ark rush into the attack, swinging his sword wildly. He shouted a warrior's cry and directed a powerful stream of crushing energy at his opponent. Hyunwoo coughed after receiving the powerful blow. His opponent was rapidly approaching. He managed to dodge the deadly blow, but the next attack hit its target. From the powerful blow, the guy flew far to the side, raising a cloud of dust with his body. Flashing his sword, he rushed toward Hyunwoo, shouting furiously that this wasn't over. But at that moment, the guy got to his feet, jumped up, and struck Andel. He almost lost his balance and struggled to stay on his feet from Ark's unexpected attack. But at that moment, he managed to grab the guy and knock him to the ground again. With a crash, Hyunwoo collapsed to the ground and coughed heavily from the powerful blow. Unwilling to give up, Hyunwoo reached out and dug his sharp claws into his enemy's helmet. In an instant, cracks ran across Ark's helmet, unable to withstand the deadly claws. Throwing the guy aside, the enraged Andel shouted at him to stop provoking him. Holding his sword in front of him, he pressed it into the rocks, causing them to crack and fly in all directions. Soon Andel saw that Hyunwoo, lying in front of him, was glowing red. The guy struggled to his feet and sat down on the ground. At that moment, Andel shouted, "Does Ark really think he knows nothing?" When they entered the cave, Ark used his insight skill on it. As soon as he checked his level and followed him, he thought he was already dead. Hyunwoo thought that everything was as he had said. After checking his level, he considered running away, but he was sure. Looking at the guy, Andel said that now he was really finished. Let him go to the other world. But Hyunwoo thought that by falling for his trick, he had gained the unbreakable body skill. He should thank him for that. Getting to his feet, Hyunwoo delivered a powerful blow. Frowning, Hyunwoo tasted the sweet taste of victory, Dark Blade. His eyes flashed with fury. He was ready to attack his enemy. Swinging fiercely, he released a powerful stream of dark energy. Stunned, Andel was shocked to see the level of damage. The system reported that it was a critical hit that bypassed the defense. He shouted in shock, "What is this?" What Ark had done. The system reported a special effect of the Dark Walker, a 20% increase to all stats in the dark. On the brink of death, an unbreakable force is activated. Attack power is increased, and the chance of a critical hit is increased by 30%. The Cat's Eye skill has been activated. He can see in the dark, checking the enemy's HP and mana, detecting weak points. The Dark Blade skill has been activated. Enemy defense is ignored. Critical hit chance increased by 30%. Critical hit power increased by 30. The reason Hyunwoo didn't use this skill earlier is that he wasn't on the brink of death. He was waiting for the right moment to deal enough damage. Now he will begin his revenge against Andel. Enraged, Andel shouted that it was impossible. 56% HP was taken away in one hit. He used the detection skill to check Hyunwoo's stats. Seeing the empty bars, he thought he was lucky. Ark no longer had any mana to use his skills, so he had nothing to fear. This idiot didn't have the thief class. Most thieves use daggers, not swords. On top of that, he ignored the defense of his armor. There's an 11-level difference between them. Could this guy have a hidden class? If he has a hidden class, then he must also have a deception skill to hide the level difference. That's why no one knows anything about him. After all, he's a solo player. Besides, if all this is true, he should look like that bastard. But something's not right. His movements don't look anything like a level 32. It must be that bastard. He told Ark that his HP was at 5% and his mana was at 0. He'll die here. Smiling, Hyunwoo asked Andel if he was sure about that. The guy screamed and swung his sword, rushing to attack the guy. At that moment, Hyunwoo used the cover of the Nightmare Mantle. His HP recovered slightly thanks to its healing properties. Waving his sword, the enraged Andel shouted at Ark to stop talking nonsense. At that moment, Hyunwoo attacked, and Andel was stunned, unable to believe what was happening. He couldn't understand how the cloak was helping Ark dodge his attack. Could this item really be of a rare class? Hyunwoo thought that Ark wasn't wearing the cloak to hide his stats. It was because in the dark, it nullified all attacks for 10 seconds. And that wasn't all. This hidden class item also restored 100 horsepower. Enraged, Andel screamed furiously, "Bastard!" At that moment, Hyunwoo delivered a powerful blow. Releasing his deadly claws and activating the cat spirit skill, he attacked the guy. Enraged, Andel shouted that his tricks wouldn't work, his eyes flashing with fury. He swung furiously to strike Hyunwoo, but the guy managed to dodge. Dodging his opponent's attack, Hyunwoo delivered another crushing blow. Seeing that Andel's body had turned red, Hyunwoo realized that this was the moment of agony. Enraged, Andel screamed furiously, glaring at his opponent with hatred. At that moment, Hyunwoo noticed that the guy had taken out a bottle and was ready to drink its contents to regain his strength. He couldn't let that happen, so he put his hand out in front of him and shouted a command, "Betal." Let it do what it wants, but stop him. Otherwise, he would have to eat his cooking for 10 days straight. The mouse screamed, "I don't want to." With all its might, the bat crashed into Andel, knocking him off his feet. The guy crashed to the ground with a loud bang. Hyun-woo shouted to cancel the call. At that moment, Hyun-woo approached Andel, looming over his opponent. Gritting his teeth in anger, the enraged Andel cursed Hyun-woo, calling him a bastard. At that moment, images from the past flashed before Hyun-woo's eyes. His acquaintance with Andel in Burma, fierce wolves attacking him, and the betrayal of those he had considered his party comrade. The young man was overcome with hatred. His eyes flashed, and the enraged Hyun-woo shouted, "Does Andel know who he is? Let him see." He delivered a deadly blow, and the system announced that he had defeated a level 44 player, plus 30 to reputation. The body of the defeated Andel burst into a bright flash and dissolved into thin air. Hyun-woo screamed furiously into the air, releasing all his anger and hatred. After calming down, the guy remembered that he hadn't picked up the dropped items yet. The first item was a pair of steel greaves made of high-quality purified steel. They had excellent defense stats. The second item was a golem stone helmet, which was imbued with the mysterious power of a magic stone. The material could withstand a blow from a mace. The mind was always clear. A magic stone also fell out. It is a mineral that contains mana from the body of a stone golem. He decided that this was the material Raymond had mentioned. The system reported that the blood crystal was an ancient artifact, a type of magic stone. It holds healing power. It grows on its own. If placed in the body of a prepared golem and fed, the golem will grow. Production is prohibited because the food for the golem is people with mana. The quest has been updated. The mineral Raymond asked for is the ancient artifact, the blood crystal. It seems that Raymond deliberately placed it in a stone golem. He decided to sacrifice the adventurer. To prevent new victims from appearing, Ark must gain Raymond's recognition and tell the Saxon guard. The guy couldn't believe that an NPC tried to sacrifice him. He needs to find Raymond, but first he has to finish here. He chose the wrong enemy. At that moment, Andel reconnected to the game. The respawn point was Saxony. Opening his eyes, the guy saw his bare feet and screamed furiously that Ark was a bastard. At that moment, he heard loud laughter. Hyun-woo shouted, "What a sight!" Dazed, Andel asked why he was there. Hyun-woo replied that he knew he would respawn in Saxony. He had been looking for him specifically to greet him. What was he so surprised about? Hyun-woo quickly approached and delivered a powerful, crushing blow. Enraged, Andel shouted that he was a son of a bitch. Only a coward would attack like that. Hyun-woo replied that he was the last person who should be saying that. Shouting furiously that Ark was a bastard, Andel raised his shield to defend himself. From Hyun-woo's crushing attack, Andel crashed to the ground with a loud thud, losing his balance. Swinging his arm, Hyun-woo wanted to deliver another blow, but Andel managed to dodge it. Jumping to the side, Andel held up his shield to block his opponent's attack. The people standing nearby were shocked by the scene unfolding before them. A man asked in surprise if these players had staged a real fight, but why? And where was the security look? Why wasn't anyone stopping them and putting an end to this? The girl asked if the gentleman didn't know. The man asked what she meant. The girl replied that one of them was a chaotic player. A chaotic player is a player who destroys other players. When a chaotic player starts a fight, the guards don't intervene. When ordinary players fight, it's different. At that moment, an enraged Andel shouted that Ark couldn't even take all of his equipment. The guard asked how the destroyer dared to hang around the settlement. He should leave if he didn't want to be beaten up. Shouting furiously at the damned NPCs, Andel looked around, trying to find Ark. At that moment, he received a powerful blow and fell to his knees, coughing. The guard said that Ark was a trickster. He asked if Mac and Philip were on duty today. Andel shouted for him not to come closer. Smirking, Hyun-woo replied that he wouldn't even think of it. He activated his cat's eye skill. Enraged, Andel shouted that he was a son of a bitch and that he would finish him off right now. But at that moment, Hyun-woo used the dark blade and delivered a crushing blow. From the crushing blow, Andel fell to the grass and lay motionless at the feet of the guards. The guy frowned as he looked at the crushed body of his worst enemy. At that moment, an object appeared on the grass. It was Andel's helmet. After a while, Andel reconnected to the game New World. When he came back to life, the guy was without his helmet. He saw Ark standing in front of him and was furious. The guy shouted, asking Andel where he got the helmet. He showed him the helmet. Why was the helmet in his hand? Enraged, Andel shouted, "Is that bastard still waiting for me? How long will this continue?" Hyun-woo replied that he had been waiting for this day. How many more times would he have to destroy him? 10, 100, or 1,000? Screaming that he was a cruel idiot, Andel grabbed his sword. At that moment, he was struck. To attack, Hyun-woo summoned a skull and launched it at his opponent. Using the skills Cat's Eye and Dark Blade, Hyun-woo attacked the enemy. Andel crashed to the ground with a loud thud. The system announced that Ark had defeated the chaotic player, plus 44 to reputation. After destroying his enemy, Hyunwoo sat down on a rock, waiting for his new resurrection. The stunned girl said, "That's the same man who participated in the RSC." The man replied that he was cruel. 10 days passed in the new world. How deep was this guy's resentment? Hyunwoo said that 24 hours had passed since his death. Will he not come back? Or maybe he has work or is on vacation. But he decided to see who would be more patient. If he was also at the interview, he wouldn't be able to come here for a few days. After a while, Andal logged back into New World. He looked around, hoping that Ark had already left and wasn't waiting for him. Not seeing the guy, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Finally, did he really leave?" At that moment, a rock hit him on the head, and he heard Ark yell, "Well, how did it go?" Standing by the wall, Hyunwoo shouted that he was there. He had just gone hunting while waiting for him. He was very late. How would he pay today? Andal cried out in despair, "Not again!" Soon, the system reported that Andal had died. The guy returned several more times and died at the hands of Hyunwoo. Returning once again, he fell to his knees. Deprived of his equipment, Andal begged for forgiveness for everything. He pleaded with Arka to talk. He sincerely apologized for everything he had done. But clenching his fists, Hyunwoo told Andal to shut up. He wasn't finished yet. Returning once again, Andal stood there in his underwear. Hyunwoo asked him why he had only come back after 2 days. What was going on? He had died 8 times. The penalty for dying is 2 stat points. Andal had lost 96 stat points. That's good, but it's still not enough. But he would be lenient, so let him answer where Burma is. Andal replied that he didn't know either. Holding a sword to his throat, Hyunwoo told the guy to think carefully. The next time he sees him, it won't end so easily. Even if his stats drop to 1, he would continue to destroy him again and again. Leaving the desperate guy behind, Hyunwoo left, saying as he walked away that he advised Andal to quit the game. Soon, near the tree, the system flashed and announced that Roko had connected to the new world. A smiling girl with huge eyes stood on a hillock next to the tree. The girl looked around in amazement. She realized that this was a virtual reality game. She was amazed that everything was just like in real life. Was she really inside the game? Everything was so well done here. The girl wondered what to do next. Soon she met the village chief, who asked her if she was here for the first time. He asked her name. The girl replied that her name was Roko and smiled at Hansen. The chief asked how he could help Roko. The girl asked if this was the village of Harun. He replied that it was Harun, a village of settlers from the kingdom of Schuttenberg. He was the village elder of Harun. The girl guessed that he was Hansen's grandfather. He asked in surprise if she really knew him. Roko replied that she had heard about him from Ark. The headman asked if she knew Ark. Roko was surprised that Grandpa Hansen remembered Ark. She had heard that he had left long ago. He replied, "Of course. How could he forget Ark? He was a polite and attentive young man. Such a rarity these days. Besides, he was unusually brave. Ark had saved the village when everyone else had turned their backs on them." The village elder asked Roko what her relationship with Ark was. The girl did not answer. She asked how she could get to Saxony. She knew that Ark had gone there. He told her that Saxony was several days' journey away. Moreover, the road was steep and dangerous. She needed to gain experience. He could find her a suitable job if she was willing to try. The girl guessed that this was the quest and replied that she was ready to try. After a while, Hansen led her to the bar owner in a storeroom filled with mice. The girl screamed in horror that they were mice. She was terribly afraid of them. She screamed, "Why mice?" She couldn't do anything with them. Rushing to the door, Roko screamed for Uncle Crichton to open the door. She was leaving. The girl grabbed the door handle tightly, trying to open it. Suddenly, there was a crunch, and the handle remained in her hands. At that moment, she turned around and saw a mouse rushing toward her. Terrified, Roko screamed to end the call, but the system replied that it was impossible to end the call during combat. She should try later. Fighting off the attacking mice, she screamed that this was complete nonsense. It was simply impossible. Roko's eyes filled with tears, and she screamed in despair for someone to save her. Covering her head with her hands, she fell to the floor and was surrounded by mice. At that moment, Hyunwoo returned to Raymond, who said that Ark had returned safely. Had he really brought him the mineral? Frowning, Hyunwoo looked at Raymond. A moment later, the guy placed the hard-won mineral on the table in front of it. The man's face contorted with anger. Hyunwoo said that he could see that Raymond was extremely surprised and quite frightened that he had managed to return alive. The man shook his head. The guy said that he must be disappointed that the man he sent to be eaten had returned alive. Raymond asked what he was talking about. The guy said that Raymond had mentioned that he often went to that cave. This meant that he knew perfectly well about the golem's existence, but had not told him. But he decided that it would be difficult to defeat the golem, so he sent him to be eaten by the golem, which had a bloody crystal growing inside it. Frowning, Raymond shouted that he didn't understand what Ark was talking about. Turning away, Hyunwoo said that in that case, he would go to the local lord and talk to him. Raymond rushed after him and shouted for him to stop. He had no other choice. At that moment, Hyunwoo heard a baby crying, and Raymond shouted, "Baby!" He ran to the crying baby and shouted that Daddy was here. With tears in his eyes, Raymond said, "Poor baby? Surprised, Hyunwoo asked if it was really his son. He replied, "Doesn't Ark know about the blood crystal? He knows it's not just a simple mineral. Long ago, he had received ancient power and a fragment of the crystal. He decided that if he grew the crystal, he could cure his son. So, he placed the crystal in the golem's body and sent strangers like him to it. Even if the blood crystal grew, there was no guarantee that it would cure the disease. But he had no choice. He couldn't lose his son. He asked Ark for a couple of days to see his son off on his final journey. Then he would give himself up and pay for his sins." Angry, Hyunwoo thought irritably about why he always ended up in such situations. Remembering his mother, he thought he understood everything. He would have done anything to make his mother better. But this was just a simple NPC. He only gave out quests. So why did he think of his mother when he looked at this child? Pushing Raymond aside, Hyunwoo told him to move. Clutching the crystal in his hands, the guy approached the sick boy's bed. The surprised child asked who this man was. Hyunwoo replied that everything would be fine. He would fulfill his father's wish and become healthy. Soon he would be able to go outside and play with his friend. The delighted boy asked if it was really true, and if he just had to wait, then that's good. Together with the bloody crystal, Hyunwoo held the boy's hand, and energy flowed into his body. The system reported that the miraculous healing had worked. It only works when a person sincerely wishes for the patient's recovery. Sincere care helps cure illnesses that neither magic nor elixirs can overcome. Now the child will recover and live an active life. For his success with the miracle treatment, he received a new stat, the title of nurse, and bonuses to his stats and reputation. The boy said he no longer felt any pain. His moved father hugged him and shouted, "Is the baby really okay? It's impossible." As he left, Hyunwoo said he was leaving. Let Raymond surrender to the guards or do whatever he wants. But from now on, he should not do anything bad. Not believing himself, the guy decided that he had gone mad and abandoned the quest. At that moment, Raymond called out, "Wait a minute." Bowing, he promised that he would surrender and thanked him for his help. He handed the young man the Aida powder. The system announced that the secret quest of the blood crystal had been completed. The alchemist explained that it was a family heirloom. However, he couldn't fully decipher it. If Ark is interested in antiquities, it will be useful to him. He hopes it will help the young man. He would also work hard, so that his son would be proud of his father. Hyunwoo replied that he would do so. The system informed him that, with the help of mana, Ark could restore any item to its original state. He could also repair items. The boy realized that this was the secret ending. The child's cough was a turning point for the quest. Although he was not a warrior, he gained repair skills. He also completed the quest and now has 11 sets of tools. He had achieved his goal, and it was time to get his life in Saxony in order. Soon, Hyunwoo saw announcements in which a local lord was offering a reward for several well-known chaotic players. Therefore, some players specialize in bounty hunting. On this bulletin board, he is looking for information about new dungeons. There is also information about ancient events. He has completed all his quests and doesn't know what to do next. He didn't have a decent job. At that moment, he noticed people heading to the dead end of Tarsha. He heard that its difficulty was C with 2 slashes. He wondered if a quest with difficulty C wasn't elite. As he got closer, Hyunwoo heard someone exclaim admiringly that it was Arin. Turning around, Hyunwoo saw a knight on a white horse wearing white armor. People shouted admiringly that Arin was handsome. He was the strongest knight and had a hidden class. Thinking deeply, Hyunwoo realized that the knight had a hidden class, just like him. The rider in the red cloak asked the stunned young man if he was Kim Hyunwoo. He replied in surprise, "Yes." "Who are you?" The girl replied that she had guessed correct. Taking off her cloak, she said she recognized him because he looked the same. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Not recognizing her, Hyunwoo looked at the girl in surprise and asked who she was. Smiling, she replied that she must have changed quite a bit. The guy asked if they had met at a job interview. Smiling, the girl replied that Kim Hyunwoo was absolutely right. He remembered when he first came to the interview at the virtual reality company. He was greeted by a girl who told him to go to the 3rd floor. He thanked her and heard laughter behind him. He thought they were laughing because the rented suit didn't fit him. He remembered that when he sat down in the chair next to the girl, he felt very embarrassed. He responded a little rudely. The girl apologized for laughing and asked if it had hurt his feelings. Frowning, Hyunwoo replied that everything was fine. It's impossible not to laugh when something is funny. She replied that it was just a misunderstanding. She laughed because no one bows so low to an administrator. When he walked away, she thought he was special and laughed. He asked if it was because of his appearance. Smiling, the girl said her name was Kang Mi-soo. Her nickname here was Lariat. Smiling back, Hyunwoo said, "Right." His nickname in the game was Ark. A little embarrassed, she said she had chosen an elf and asked if that was strange. The guy replied that it suited her. He asked if she was participating in this raid. She replied yes. She wasn't at the recommended level yet, so she was just exploring. He asked about the recommended level. Misu replied that a friend was helping her. She herself was only at level 50. The guy was stunned to hear her level. The girl asked if something was wrong. She asked what his level was. Embarrassed, Hyun-woo replied that he was at level 35. The girl said that, to be honest, her level was also low among those who came to the interview. Many of them were already over level 70. For example, Arin, the raid leader. Shocked, Hyun-woo was simply stunned to hear about the 75th level. At that moment, Arin drove up and asked what Lariat was doing there. She replied that she had met an acquaintance and they had started talking. It was Ark who was also at the interview. Arin said that since he was also at the interview and wanted to level up, he could join the raid. This quest is very difficult, so they need more people. Miso briefly pulled him aside. She whispered something in Arin's ear. He frowned and looked at Hyun-woo. He said that everyone has their own circumstances. Therefore, he apologized for his tactlessness. He called Miso to come with him, and as she left, she shouted that she wished Ark good luck. Stunned, he watched her leave, overcome by an unpleasant feeling. When Hyun-woo left the game, he thought about Arana and Lariat. He realized that he didn't like it. The management team is watching the good game. A good game is the key to passing the exam. Of course, the level in the game is an important factor. With a high level, you can hunt stronger monsters and get better items. You can also access larger areas and more difficult quests. In short, the higher the level, the better the chance of showing the game they want. Conversely, the lower the level, the higher the chance of failing the exam. Living expenses can be covered by subsidy, but without a job, he won't be able to pay his mother's hospital bills. He needs more time to play. He thought about maybe trying to sell items from the game. When Hyun-woo saw the price on his phone, he was shocked. He shouted that it was nonsense. Is that really the price of a game item? That's the cost of his mother's hospital bills for 3 months. Even if it was a unique item, it had a usage restriction of level 20. Maybe the reason for the price increase was that there were a lot of people here who were job hunting. After thinking it over, he decided to make money in the game. Soon, he summoned a skull and a bat and set off on a hunt. The mouse asked why its master was putting so much effort into it. It was scared. He replied that the mouse should get ready. In the future, they would hunt and hunt again without rest. The profession doesn't matter here, but since he chose it, he must become the best at it. First, you need to learn how to use your abilities to their fullest. The mouse screamed for help. The guy replied that she was very noisy. If she wanted to become stronger, then she had to eat. Hyun-woo decided to repair the items he had dropped using magical restoration. If he kept practicing the skill, it would improve and cost less. He will improve and the costs will decrease. Items from the new world are worth 10,000 won in reality. He will be able to take care of himself. Suddenly, a terrifying monster appeared in front of Hyun-woo and shouted at him for daring to cause trouble on his territory. He replied that the skeleton should stop yelling. Instead, he gave it experience, money, and various items. The monster screamed that he was a fool. How dare a pathetic human attack the gatekeeper of the underworld? With a single swing of his devastating scythe, the skeleton knocked down trees that had stood for years. Falling to his knees, Hyun-woo asked the skull and the mouse if they were all right. The mouse asked sarcastically why he was worried about them. Looking at the skeleton, Hyun-woo realized that it was a level 50 monster, but there was nothing to fear. In the Shadow Forest, he had leveled up to level 39. If he used the Dark Walker's passive skill, he would be on par with a level 45 monster. In addition, the level of his recently acquired skills had also risen sharply. At that moment, the enraged monster let out a loud cry. "Let it go to the afterlife!" Swinging his sword, Hyun-woo fiercely charged at the terrifying beast. He used the dark blade to deliver a crushing blow. The monster screamed in pain. Dodging the deadly blows, Hyun-woo shouted at the bat. She replied that she understood everything. Just don't let him eat her again. At that moment, the skull, frowning and flashing its eyes, also rushed into battle. They attacked the enraged monster from 3 sides, trying to inflict damage on it. At that moment, the terrifying skeleton, enraged, directed a stream of energy toward the young man. He barely managed to dodge the deadly stream of the skeleton's terrifying scythe. The gatekeeper of the underworld's eyes flashed, and he screamed furiously to make the man feel the horror of death. At that moment, the skull and the bat fiercely and fearlessly rushed at the monster. With eyes wide with terror, Hyun-woo stood before the gatekeeper of the underworld. The grinning monster swung its arm to deliver a crushing blow. But Hyun-woo managed to dodge the deadly attack and, dodging, dealt a crushing blow to the skeleton. Dissolving into thin air, the monster screamed at the human not to resist the fear of death. Flashing his eyes and frowning, Hyun-woo replied that he feared poverty more than death. After grabbing the monster's scythe, Hyun-woo smiled and thought that it was a weapon for warriors, so he couldn't use it, but there were many warriors here. Therefore, he would be able to sell it for a decent price. By using his strength to fight with swords or collect items, his stats would increase. It was a pity that he had not known this before. But now everything is different. He decided to become a player, and he will do everything to become as strong as possible. Now, he will find another place to hunt. Suddenly, Hyun-woo was stunned to see a menu pop up in front of him. Clicking on the inventory, he saw the mirror he had once received from Deborah. He remembered that it was an item that could be used from level 40. The system informed him that he had gained invaluable experience. Now, everything would accumulate in the form of knowledge and become the key to a new adventure. He received a hand mirror and realized that someone's memories were contained within it. When he was ready, the mirror would notify him and lead him onward. The guy said to unlock it and was very surprised by what he saw in the mirror. A view of the embankment unfolded before him. Hyunwoo also noticed that everything was in an unfamiliar language. It was a language the player didn't know, and he thought it was very sad. He guessed that the mirror was like a lighthouse guiding a ship. That was its purpose. He told the skull and the mouse that they were leaving. Their destination was set. They would follow the light and receive a quest. The mouse asked him to feed her more. After all, he had helped catch the Reaper and worked hard. Hyunwoo replied that he would see how she behaved. The beam from the mirror acts like a compass, but it only appears at night. So at night they followed the beam north, and during the day they hunted and rested. They followed the beam in a straight line, but during the day when the light disappeared, it was easy to lose their direction and get lost. At first, everything was like in the Shadow Forest, but when they went deeper, they encountered mature wolves and Bengal tigers. And even further on, creatures with hyena-like faces and human bodies appeared. These were gnomes. Dealing with one gnoll was no problem, but they gathered in groups and attacked using tactics. Soon, both of those who had been summoned were forced to return home, and he understood something. As he destroyed the monsters, the boy shouted furiously that he would avenge the skull and the bat. The summoned creatures were very useful, and Hyunwoo regretted their absence. 24 hours of real time is 3 game days, during which he can summon them. Until he could summon them, Hyunwoo hunted, leveled up, and collected items. There was nothing more interesting than earning money. He would have liked to, but he wasn't worried at all. He had already decided that he was used to being alone, but it wasn't much fun. With his little animals, he didn't feel lonely. Skull with his boundless devotion. The bat grumbled, but it would defend him when necessary. At that moment, Hyunwoo felt that 24 hours was a very long time. When the mouse returned, it cried out, asking if its master had seen the arrow that had pierced it right here. She pointed to her head and cried that it hurt very much. Since he was their master, he should take care of them. But as their master, he only fed them rotten food. They were nothing more than a living shield to him. Wasn't that a bit much? Seeing the skull, the bat cried out for him to support her too. But the skull just looked down sadly. Tears flowed from its eye sockets. The mouse screamed that the master would die and become a skull like him. She couldn't take it anymore. Lowering his eyes, Hyunwoo replied that he would be more careful next time. The mouse continued to scream that he should have said something, but suddenly she stopped and asked what he had said. Holding out the food, Hyunwoo replied that she was right. He had been too harsh. This was his apology. The mouse screamed that she was wrong. If he was angry, he should just say so. She just wanted her master to care more. But after tasting the delicious food, the mouse and the skull lay blissfully on the grass. The guy said that while they were gone, he had thought things over. It seemed like they had been fighting too often. They needed to learn to work together. He would be kinder to them. Frowning, the mouse asked what it meant to work together. The owner would feed them terrible food again. Smiling, Hyunwoo replied that he was going to come up with a good strategy. For example, Plan A. It's a joint attack on one enemy from different sides. Plan B. While he deals with one, they distract the others. There was also Plan C. While they were fighting the skull, the mouse would lead the others away. Plan D is for emergency. They drop everything and run away to survive. He shouted that they should all drop everything and run. The mouse said no. When he rushed to run away, the master had to cancel the call. He has plenty of mana, so why not use it once during the fight? Thinking about it, Hyunwoo realized that this was a very good combination. They're cute, so they quietly changed their original plan until they found the most effective method. Hunting became much easier and more fun. Hearing the clacking of skulls, the mouse told him to stop until they started feeding them. Hyunwoo realized that these guys' abilities were not yet fully revealed. Like players, their combat power depended on experience. Looking at their stats now, they wouldn't even be able to take down a single wolf. But if they continue to gain experience with him and eat his food, the mouse cried out that it was unfair to torture her with food. It was the skull's fault. Why should he eat? He told her to stop making excuses and shut up. Let him eat. The mouse screamed, and this was her response to her cries for help. It's not fair. The master should apologize. Flashing his eyes, Hyunwoo said he was asking the mouse's master for forgiveness. And if she continued to be insolent, he would offer him 100 portions of food. He thought that when the day came, they would cover for him. Soon they reached the village. The mouse asked what village it was. He replied that it was not marked on the map. The village was completely destroyed, and there were no people to be seen anywhere. The mouse said she had never seen such an abandoned village. He replied quietly Don't blame the locals for their reclusiveness and dislike of the undead. Soon they met a guy with a backpack who looked at them suspiciously. The guy said it would be better not to go into the village. They should be careful and leave quickly. Frowning, the bat said that it seemed like a very bad place. He asked what she was grumbling about. Maybe she wanted to cook. The mouse replied that she understood. They needed to find a store quickly. They had been collecting items for 5 days. Their bag was full. Soon they reached the store. The shopkeeper was surprised to see a stranger. He said that a stranger had found their village. He didn't even know how to react. The guy said he wanted to get rid of everything. The shopkeeper offered 10 gold coins. Hyun-woo asked in surprise, 10 gold coins? The shopkeeper replied, yes, what's wrong? The guy said that the bag was completely full, and he was offering 10 gold coins without even looking. He was offering the price for everything as if it were junk. The shopkeeper replied that he could estimate the value without looking. There was nothing valuable there. The clubs and animal skins weren't worth the money. Hyun-woo thought that was no surprise. Anything you could get nearby was always cheaper than the market price. Besides, his restoration skill only added 1 point to the durability. He asked if he could raise the price a little. The seller replied that, to be honest, it wasn't about the price. He was about to close up shop and leave the village. Anything he bought now would just be extra baggage. If the guy didn't want to sell it, he could just throw it away. Hyun-woo replied clearly, let him take care of it. The salesman said, all right then. There are no other villages around anyway. I'll take a look. The stunned man asked Hyun-woo if it was really the skin of a gray gnoll. He shouted, my God! It really is a gray gnoll skin, and asked where it came from. The guy decided he was lucky. It was time to bargain. He said it wasn't easy to get the skin of this monster. Every time, he was on the verge of death. After all, they were strong opponents. Wasn't it unfair to set a price based on weight for skin that was so hard to obtain? The stunned seller asked doubtfully if he really meant that he had defeated the Grey Knoll, so he crossed the Agus mountain range. Hyun-woo realized that this was a fiasco. He said he didn't know how, but he did it without knowing the way. The seller said that if he had really defeated the Grey Knoll and agreed to fulfill his request, he would buy everything for 20 gold coins. Upon hearing the request, Hyun-woo realized that this was a quest. The merchant said his name was Garen. This village was founded by a settler from the outside world. It was a barren place at the foot of a mountain. He thought it would become a transit point between Saxony and the trading city of Jiran. They were concerned about the abundance of monsters, but an experienced mercenary named Lancel became their leader, and they built the village. But one day, a group of gnomes arrived. They settled in a cave deep in the mountains. Because of them, their dream of building a trading post was destroyed. They had no money to hire mercenaries. Lancel repelled the gnomes' attacks several times, but eventually decided that he could not cope alone. He gathered his people and set off for the gnomes' cave. It is unclear whether the gnomes raised them, but there were many snakes in the cave. The snakes and gnomes attacked Lancel and drove everyone out of the cave, but Lancel did not give up and went back there again. In the end, he never returned. After that, the villagers began to leave, one by one. Hyun-woo understood why the village was like that. The merchant probably wants him to get rid of the gnomes. Garen asked if he would help them. Smiling, Hyun-woo replied that he was an adventurer, so he couldn't just walk by. Lowering his head, Garen said he couldn't pay much. Hyun-woo replied that he knew. He would be lying if he said he didn't want a reward for the risk. But he never expected a big reward. Let him give as much as he wants. He thought gnolls were excellent monsters to hunt at his current level. He was going to hunt them anyway. They were herd animals and gave a lot of experience. The merchant said he would give 20 silver coins for the skin of each gnoll destroyed. There were about 100 of them in the cave. If he destroyed them all and restored peace to the village, he would give him 10 more gold coins. That was all he could offer. Hyun-woo decided that was a lot of money. Garen said he was sorry, but he couldn't pay for the snakes and asked if he could rely on the guy. The guy replied that Garen shouldn't worry and that he could count on him. Fate itself had brought him here for this job. The system announced the quest, Misfortune of Lancel Village. The task was to defeat the gnomes and save the village from misfortune. Soon, Hyun-woo, along with the skull and the bat, set off on a hunt. They carefully made their way to the cave and saw 2 gnoll guards at the entrance. He thought that the cave was only an hour's walk from Lancel. That was why the gnomes attacked so often. There were 2 at the entrance. They must be guards, but they were bigger than the ones he had encountered on the Agus Ridge, and their armor was pretty good. At that moment, one of the gnomes said to the other that it smelled like humans. The second replied that he could smell it too. The guy realized that because they had hyena heads, they had an excellent sense of smell. The gnoll asked what they were going to do. The second one replied that they would catch the human and sacrifice him. Hyun-woo was stunned to hear about the sacrifice. The mouse asked fearfully if they were going to be sacrificed. He ordered her to start squeaking. Darting forward, the mouse screamed that they were stupid dogs. Hearing the mouse's voice, the gnomes stopped and looked at the source of the sound, clicking their teeth. At that moment, Hyun-woo shouted to attack, and they rushed at the stunned gnomes. The guy shouted, "Plan A!" Frowning, the mouse cursed them, calling them stupid bastards. Attacking, the bat flew with all its might and crashed right into the gnoll's face. As soon as the gnoll raised its crushing spear, Hyun-woo shouted to finish the call. Rushing into the attack, he immediately shouted the call again, the bat. When the mouse appeared, he shouted that there was no time. Proceed with plan A. The bat rushed at the gnoll's face. Hyun-woo swung his sword, and the skull clung to the monster's leg. The enraged gnomes swung their spears, repelling the attack of the strangers. Swinging with all his might, the gnoll aimed his crushing spear at the young man. But Hyun-woo managed to dodge the attack and delivered a powerful blow to the attacking gnoll. From the crushing blow, the gnoll lost his balance and fell to the ground with a crash. At that moment, Hyun-woo rushed to attack the second gnoll, swinging his sword furiously. He quickly closed the distance and delivered a crushing blow to the monster's head with his foot. Wielding his sword, he destroyed the stunned gnoll with a furious blow. In an instant, the crushed gnoll dissolved into thin air, leaving only fragments of energy behind. At that moment, the second gnoll tried to sneak away from the battlefield, but they noticed it. Skull and Mouse furiously rushed after it and attacked the monster. They clung to it with their sharp teeth, preventing it from escaping its enemies. At that moment, Hyun-woo rushed at it, swinging his sword. A few moments later, only energy shreds remained of the second monster. After destroying the gnomes, they obtained 2 skins. The mouse said that the master's eyes were shining too brightly. He told her to be quiet. He knew what it meant. 1 skin meant he would get a whole kimchi. She asked what a kimcob was. He replied that she would soon see. For now, enough chatter. Let them look in the obai. They were already approaching the cave. The mouse asked him to tell her because she was curious. When they reached the cave, Hyun-woo felt uneasy. The system reported that this was the lair of the dark snakes. The cave was filled with a terrifying atmosphere. Barking could be heard from the depths of the cave, and heavy breathing came from small holes in the cave. It was impossible to tell how many gnomes and snakes were in the cave. Mishka said she couldn't see a thing. It was pitch black all around. The guy felt a surge of power. His senses were on high alert. Before, he would have hated this, but now, thanks to his dark walker skill, all his skills were enhanced by 30%. Besides, day would soon break. Monsters only get stronger at night, so very soon. He would be the only one here whose strength would grow thanks to the darkness. The dungeon reveals his skills to their fullest. He feels at home. The mouse saw dog heads. Hyun said it was perfect. They should wait here and then act on his signal. He used his stealth skill to get closer to the monsters. The gnomes discussed that the victim had disappeared. This is bad. The spirit will be angry because of this. We need to attack the village and catch the people. We can't let the spirit get angry again. There are still people in the village. It's far away, but we have to go. If they don't find people, the spirit might eat them too. Hyun-woo was stunned to hear that the spirit could eat people. Suddenly, the gnomes sensed the smell of humans. Could the people have come back? It's better for them. The boy sent a message to the bat to distract the gnomes. The mouse was surprised, not understanding where the voice was coming from. He said that their souls were connected. That's why they could communicate without saying a word. The mouse replied that she understood. She told him to trust her. A moment later, the bat flew into the air and circled above the gnome's head. Distracted by the bat, the monsters did not notice Hyun-woo sneaking up on them and striking. After destroying the 2 gnomes, the guy went to the remaining 3 monsters standing nearby. The system reported that he had delivered a deadly blow. Damage increased by 200%. The gnomes were stunned for 10 seconds. Noticing Hyun-woo, the monsters shouted, "Human! Victim! We must capture him immediately." But Hyun-woo just smiled at them, ready for a fierce confrontation. He fiercely rushed at the stunned gnomes, delivering deadly blows with his sword. He moved swiftly, not giving the monsters a chance to counter his attacks. The enraged gnomes shouted that this damn man was impossible to catch. Moving swiftly, the guy delivered new and devastating blows. Swinging his sword, he crushed the terrifying monsters, trying to destroy them completely. Suddenly, one of the gnomes dangerously approached the attacking Hyun-woo. It had already extended its huge paw with sharp claws toward him, but the guy managed to dodge it. Turning in midair, Hyun-woo delivered a deadly blow with his sword, and the gnoll roared furiously. The remaining gnomes shouted furiously that this little man was incredibly strong, but his time had come. The gnoll took out a huge horn to blow and call the others. Seeing this, Hyun-woo shouted to the mouse and the skull to stop him. He couldn't let him call the other gnomes. Clinging to the monster's paws, the mouse screamed for him to stop immediately. She didn't want to be eaten anymore. The guy shouted too late. If the others came running here now, they would be in big trouble. The mouse screamed about the stench. She was about to vomit. She begged her master that she felt sick. Suddenly, Hyun-woo was stunned to see that he was surrounded by snakes on all sides. The mouse asked where all these snakes had come from. Hyun-woo replied that it seemed the knoll had tried to summon something other than his own kind. The guy couldn't believe that the knoll had summoned ordinary snakes and activated the cat spirit. Hundreds of snakes immediately pressed themselves against the ground in fear, not trying to attack the guy. The knoll shouted that this couldn't be happening. Hyun-woo said that it seemed to be their secret weapon, which he had figured out too quickly. Smirking, he asked if he really wanted to defeat him with some petty monsters. The enraged knoll screamed like a monster. At that moment, Hyun-woo rushed to attack it. He decided that the reason why this quest was so difficult was probably because of these snakes. If other players who didn't have a cat spirit had come here, even with a higher level, they would hardly have been able to escape. The vile snakes decided that he would be paralyzed with fear since he was a mouse. Let them all die. At that moment, deep inside the cave, the chief and knoll asked what was going on. Had they still not caught the man who had entered the cave? The gnomes replied that except for the two of them, everyone else had died. This man is incredibly strong. If this continues, they will not be able to appease the spirit's wrath. The Great Spirit is very angry because of this man. He must be stopped at all costs. We cannot allow this man to enter here. If that happens, it will be the end of them all. At that moment, using his stealth skill, Hyun-woo approached the chief knoll. After striking him, the guy asked if he was really the boss of the gnomes. The gnomes standing nearby were shocked. They shouted in shock, wondering where this man had come from and how he had gotten here. Grabbing their spears, they rushed to attack the suddenly appeared guy. At that moment, Hyun-woo summoned the skull and the bat for help. They fiercely attacked the monsters to help their master defeat them. A few moments later, the heads of the destroyed gnomes flew into the air. At that moment, the chief gnoll tried to escape, but the skull clamped its teeth into him. The mouse screamed for him to lie still. He had nowhere to run. If he didn't stop struggling, he would be in for a world of pain. The guy exhaled. All he had left to do was deal with this guy, and he had 30 gold coins in his pocket. At that moment, the gnoll grabbed his staff and shouted, "Nunak Nunak Sardarani!" The mouse asked if he was crazy. What was he up to? Couldn't he just lie still? Repeating the spell, the gnome shouted for the Great Snake King to show himself and punish this man. The stunned guy asked the Snake King what the dog was talking about. At that moment, the walls of the cave began to crack. Debris flew in all directions. Shocked, Hyun-woo frowned and shouted, "Is that really the Snake King?" At that moment, the system announced that the boss Kundarini was in front of Ark. A huge snake opened its mouth and hissed furiously. At that moment, Hyun-woo felt that his body was unable to move. The guy didn't understand. He wasn't a beginner. He had fought rats the size of wolves and bears, gremlins and golems, and he had even defeated a chaotic player with experience in destroying other players without much effort. However, this terrifying monster was a completely different matter. His body was not obeying him. The reason for the high difficulty of this quest was not the snakes, but this creature. The system reported that Ark looked into Kundarini's eyes and fell into a trap that suppressed his first attack. The effect would not disappear until he was struck. He was shocked that he couldn't attack first. It could just swallow him whole. Was he really supposed to just stand there and wait? At that moment, a huge snake slammed into the ground with a crash, destroying everything around it. The shocked guy asked if the snake had simply taken his place. At that moment, the stunned Hyun-woo saw a skull with red eyes and the huge mouth. The system reported that the skull was being sent back to the other world. At that moment, the guy felt that the trap's effect had disappeared. The mouse screamed for its owner to come to his senses. The skull rushed to attack to protect it. So, why is he standing there like a statue? The guy happily thanked the skull and the bat. He activated the cat's eye skill. At that moment, Hyun-woo realized that this monster was level 80 and cursed. After all, that was even higher than Aaron's level. He had risen one level in the cave, so now he was at level 46. Even considering that his skills had improved thanks to the darkness, there was still a huge difference in strength between them. How was he going to deal with it? At that moment, Hyun-woo noticed a sword on the snake's head. He decided that it was Lancelot's sword. Lancel was unable to carry out his plan and lost to this monster. However, it is said that this sword holds the will of its owner to protect the village and its inhabitant. He decided to inherit Lancelot's will and receive 50% of his life force. He would get a unique chance to get rid of the creature once and for all. He swiftly flew into the air and attacked the terrifying monster with his sword. Seeing the snake's eyes, Hyun-woo realized with horror that even though he had attacked its weak spot, its health had not decreased. At that moment, the terrifying creature knocked the young man to the ground with a powerful blow from its tail and hissed. Wielding its enormous tail, the snake furiously destroyed everything around it. From the monster's powerful blow, Hyun-woo was knocked off his feet and flew to the side, groaning. The system reported that Ark had been poisoned. His health would decrease by 3 points per second for 5 minutes. The terrifying monster opened its huge mouth and hissed furiously at Hyun-woo, The guy shouted for the mouse to distract it. She began to complain that she had to do all the hard work. She flew swiftly in front of the snake's head to distract it from its master. Soon she begged her master to do something. She couldn't do it anymore. The guy knew he couldn't destroy the monster with one blow, but it was moving slower than expected. Therefore, he needed to gradually reduce its health while dodging its attacks. He knew its weak spot, and while the mouse distracted it, he would focus on its head. The guy slowly made his way to the snake's head, where its weak spot was located. Finally, he managed to grab Lancelot's sword and thought that was great. He shouted furiously for the monster to take the dark blade. Suddenly, he saw that he couldn't pierce the skin. The guy realized he was running out of mana. He hadn't used the dark blade because of its high mana consumption, but he had been using the summon for a long time. The snake continued to twist its body furiously. Hyunwoo shouted, "When will it finally calm down?" If this continued, he would never be able to reduce its health. Plus, its skin was so thick that even a sword couldn't pierce it. He had to find another way quickly. Looking at its tail, Hyunwoo decided that this should work. The mouse shouted that at this rate, they would die under the rubble, unless that worm ate them first. He shouted to the mouse that there was only one way to destroy the creature before it buried them under the rocks. The mouse screamed that his master's attacks weren't working because he was going to finish him off. He replied, "Mutual self-destruction." The mouse screamed that he was out of his mind. How exactly was he going to destroy himself, along with a worm that even a sword couldn't touch? The guy shouted at the mouse to keep its eyes open and act as soon as he gave the signal. He wasn't going to go to the other world alone. The mouse screamed, asking what was the point if they were all going to die here. They had to find another way. There was no other way. Lancel had given his life to protect the village and its inhabitants. Skull had also fallen into the monster's jaws and gone to the other world. Their deaths must not be in vain. The mouse asked if he couldn't just summon him again. He replied, "Enough talk. They need to lure him toward the cliff. He'll fall with him." Mouse screamed that the master had gone mad. Clutching the snake's eye, the mouse screamed for the brainless worm to crawl after her. At that moment, Hyunwoo tried to thrust his sword into the terrifying monster. The enraged beast hissed and thrashed about in a frenzy. The guy shouted for it to fly into the abyss faster. Due to the poison, he had almost no health left. The guy used his last strength to hold onto the sword tightly. The snake flew forward in a frenzy. The mouse cried out in triumph. The worm was flying down, along with its master. Enraged, Hyunwoo shouted at Kundarini to let him be his companion. The snake flew into the abyss. The snake, which had fallen to the bottom of the abyss, glowed red. The mouse rushed down. She flew up to Hyunwoo and asked if his master was all right. Looking down, she wondered if he had died. The boy lay near the snake with his eyes closed. Soon he opened his eyes. The mouse was stunned that the creature was not dead. Hyunwoo also could not understand how the snake had survived the fall from such a height. The system reported that thanks to the Cat Knight skill, the damage from the fall was reduced by 50%. He realized that the skill had saved his life. The monstrous snake was still alive, and hissing menacingly at the guy standing next to him. Seeing that the snake's body was all red, Hyunwoo thought about a double critical hit. There was no time to think. Poison couldn't be cured, so he would die in a couple of seconds anyway. Swinging his sword, he fiercely charged at the terrifying monster. Putting all his remaining strength into it, Hyunwoo delivered a powerful, crushing blow to the monster. The huge snake furiously swung its tail, trying to reach the boy and strike him. Dodging the deadly tail, Hyunwoo shouted like a mouse, and the mouse rushed toward the snake. With a cry, it attacked the monster alongside Hyunwoo. The system reported that thanks to the double critical attack, they had dealt a fatal blow. The crushed snake collapsed to the ground and began to dissolve into thin air. The system announced that the boss Kundari had been destroyed. Arca's level had been raised. The guy shouted joyfully that everything had worked out. His health was at a critical level. Thanks to the good meal, the poison had been completely eliminated from Hyunwoo's body, and his health gradually began to recover. He thought that if it had been a little longer, he would have been dead. At that moment, the guy noticed a glowing sword. Next to it lay the remains of Lancel, the leader of the village of Lancel. Hyunwoo said that if it weren't for Lancel, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Kundarini. Lancel's sword evoked such an oppressive feeling that it was hard to believe it had been used by an ordinary mercenary. It had been stuck in Kundarini's forehead for a long time. Because of this, it absorbed a lot of poison and received a powerful curse. The characteristics of the sword can only be determined by removing the curse. You can check the characteristics in large cities. However, the curse can only be removed in a cathedral. He thought he would never know if the item was worth anything, but this sword reduced Kundarini's health by 50%. That's impressive. At that moment, Hyunwoo noticed the remains of an altar where the gnomes had prayed when the snake appeared. The system reported that they had discovered an ancient incubation altar. It is an ancient relic and can quickly awaken eggs of all kinds. It was obvious that all the numerous snakes living in the cave were descended from the Kundarini monster and had hatched thanks to the altar. Lost in thought, Hyun-woo remembered the egg from the astral world and summoned it. He thought that if it was growing 500% faster, it was like cooking 5 times at once. If it didn't hatch here, who knew when it would? The mouse said that this was already the 44th dish. How long would they keep doing this? Hyun-woo replied that they would not leave until it hatched. Thanks only to his help and the skull, he was becoming much stronger. He didn't know who would hatch from the egg, but he was sure it would be useful. Hunting will definitely become faster. After all, the master says so. Hyun-woo replied, "Of course, it doesn't matter who it is." Suddenly, they noticed that the egg was moving. The mouse cried out that it was about to hatch and asked the master who he thought it was. He hoped it wasn't a mouse. The system reported that the egg from the astral world had received enough nutrients and was ready to hatch. The guy shouted happily, "Finally, it's hatching!" The shell of the egg cracked. After a while, the shell broke apart, and a white snake appeared before them. It was the baby snake of Aramon, who lived in the other world. He had a unique habit of hiding all the objects he came across inside himself. The objects inside are not digested. Therefore, these creatures were on the verge of extinction because of hunters who sought the objects. Snakes have a gentle nature. They recognize the first creature they see after birth as their parent. Therefore, it will be a loyal companion that will never betray its master. The guy realized that the snake had no skills and couldn't be used in battle, but it could store objects. Holding the sword in his hands, Hyun-woo wondered how it did that. At that moment, he was stunned to see that the snake had eaten his sword. He couldn't believe that it had fit inside it. He shouted that the snake hadn't swallowed it just because it wanted to eat it. Leaning over it, Hyun-woo asked it to spit him out, and the snake obediently spat out the sword. The little snake climbed onto the boy's shoulder. The mouse cried out in dissatisfaction, asking what was going on. That was her place. The snake's eyes sparkled. Hyun-woo asked in surprise if she was trying to charm him. After thinking for a moment, Hyun-woo decided that his bag was too small, so it would come in handy. Usually, when choosing a task, they give out 2 or 3 extra bags, but not this time. Could it be that the snake has everything it needs? Looking at the young snake, Hyun-woo decided that from now on, he would call him Snake. They sorted out the cave and found a new friend. Now, it was time to return to the village. He laid out the knoll skins in front of the stunned Garen. He gave him the promised reward for saving the village. With tears in his eyes, Garen thanked Ark for saving their village. The boy asked Garen if he had said that. When Lancel entered the cave, there were a huge number of snakes. He said that there really were a lot of snakes in the cave. However, it wasn't the gnomes who summoned them. The cave was home to Kundarini, a snake worshipped by the gnomes. They raided the village and sacrificed its inhabitants to him. Apparently, Lancel decided to fight Kundari. He destroyed the snake and found Lancel's remains. He cared for this village like no one else. If he hadn't delivered that decisive blow in his battle with Kundarini, he would not have been able to defeat the snake. Garen said he always knew something was wrong. Lancel was one of the strongest mercenaries. It was hard to believe that he was defeated by Gnome. The guy said that if Lancel had decided to take on such a monster alone, he was definitely not an ordinary man. Garen said that Lancel had taken many lives on the border front in his time. He was a ruthless mercenary who had earned the nickname Vampire. But he didn't do it of his own free will. The bloody wind of the battlefield and the sword in his hand drove him mad. In the end, disappointed, he left the battlefield. And so, driven by an overwhelming desire to help others, he decided to join them and found a town. He remained true to his oath to protect the village until the end. Perhaps this was his way of trying to atone for his sins. Now, thanks to Ark, their village is safe. He will devote all his strength to rebuilding it, even if it takes his entire life. He asked if the young man planned to continue his journey. Hyun-woo replied yes. Frowning, Garen asked if he could ask for a favor. The settlers who came with Lancel loved this place very much. Many of them left the village fearing for the safety of their loved ones. But now they were safe. If Ark happened to meet any of them on his journey, he should tell them that peace had come to the village and they could return. And of course, they would always be happy to welcome new residents. Their gates were open to everyone, regardless of race. The system has issued a new quest. Find new settlers for the village of Lancel. Difficulty, C. The guy left the village and, seeing that the time had come, used the summon. Soon, a smiling skull appeared in front of them on the grass, its eyes sparkling. The guy thought that when a summoned creature returns, it can be summoned again after 24 hours. It could be summoned again, but the skull had given its life. He sacrificed himself to save his master's life. Did he really do that? Looking at the smiling skull, Hyun-woo called out to it and said thank you. He thought that no matter who he was, these 3 would always watch over him. From that moment on, no matter if someone tried to eat him or destroy him, he would only trust them. They would go through anything together, no matter what happened. 2 weeks later, they finally reached the coast. He wondered if this was the place they had seen in the mirror. The mouse screamed to its owner that there was a whole flock of monsters that looked like sharks. To assess the level of the monsters they saw, Hyun-woo used his cat's eye. They were sharkmen with a level of 55. He thought he could handle them. but it would be difficult if they attacked as a pack. He would have to make them fight one at a time. They would wait there until sunset. Mouse asked why they had to wait until nightfall. His skills would improve, but the monsters would also become stronger. The guy replied that you could get more points for killing monsters at night. The mouse said that it sounded like he just liked to make things difficult. He replied that he'd better keep quiet. Besides, darkness is a dark walker's best friend in any battle. He remembered meeting a doctor who said that unfortunately, there was nothing more they could do for him at the moment. With tears in his eyes, the boy asked if what he had just said was true. The doctor said that 5 years ago, when Hyun-woo was 17, he had told him that there was nothing they could do. His mother's condition was so serious at the time that they were certain they were helpless. All they could do was pray. He had a skull fracture with bleeding in the brain and 7 broken bones. In addition, high blood pressure seriously complicated the operation. Although the surgery was successful, she remained in a coma for 2 years and was unable to move her limbs normally after waking up. She also suffered from sudden fainting spells due to the stress she had experienced and post-traumatic stress disorder. However, everything is fine now. Her condition has improved significantly. It can be said that this is a real miracle. His prayers were answered. It would be best to start rehabilitation treatment gradually. Hyun-woo replied, "Please go ahead." Overjoyed by the news, the young man entered the ward to tell his mother what he had heard from the doctor. But her mother was not alone in the room. A man was standing nearby, frowning. The young man greeted investigator Guan. The investigator greeted Hyun-woo and asked if everything was okay. He was at the hospital and decided to stop by to see his mother. The young man replied that there was no need to explain anything. As he left the room, Guan told them to talk in private and that he would wait in the hallway. He replied that Guan shouldn't be in such a hurry. Hyun-woo told his mother that he had heard she was feeling better lately. She replied that she was already feeling well. Her mood had even improved. She felt so sorry. Everything would be different now if it weren't for her. Hyun-woo interrupted her, saying she shouldn't talk like that. She should only think about how she would get better soon, and everything would be fine. Besides, he's an adult now, so there's no need to worry about him. He's already 22. Mom thought that 5 years for an adult could pass unnoticed. After all, the older you get, the faster time goes by. But 5 years for a 17-year-old boy. They must have been unbearably long and painful. To lose your father one morning, and a mother who, although still alive, had become a real burden. Her head was swarming with questions. Was he eating? Was his bed comfortable? He never talked about it, but he must have had dreams. What were his hobbies? Did he still like games? Did he have a girlfriend? She couldn't even imagine how hard it was for him to pay the hospital bills. Her little boy. The guy jokingly said that it seemed like Detective Guan often visited her. He was grateful that he had been there for her for 5 years. She replied that she should tell him thank you. If it weren't for him, she would have had a very hard time. She feels so uncomfortable in front of him for everything that happened. She caused him so much trouble. Hyun-woo said he felt the same way, so she shouldn't worry about it. He shouldn't worry about it. Mom asked in surprise what he was talking about. Hyun-woo smiled and said he didn't mind. Mom was embarrassed and told him not to say anything strange in front of investigator Guan. Standing behind the door, Guan frowned and wondered if they were talking about him. Once upon a time, he used to hang out with some guys in an alley, stealing money from high school students. At that moment, some guys from his class walked by and noticed Kim Hyun-woo. They said in surprise, "Is he going there too?" When Hyun-woo saw them, he shouted. They stared at him. "Get out of here, you idiots, if you don't want to live." They said they were his friends. He shouted, "Stop pretending you know anything about me." The excited boys asked what was wrong with Hyun-woo. He wasn't like that at all. He shouted furiously that it didn't matter what he was like. It was none of their business. They should just get out of there. Suddenly, Hyun-woo, who was stunned, received a hard slap from the investigator. Guan looked sternly at Kim Hyun-woo and asked if he was still living like this. Trying to hit him, the guy shouted why Guan Hwaran was always meddling in his life. But the investigator grabbed his legs and glared at him. Hyun-woo told him to just leave him alone. He's not his father. Why is he always interfering in his affairs? He only reminded him of his father, who had chosen to end his life. At the hospital, Guan said that Hyun-woo was the first high school student to attack him with his fists. He remembered how they said that the victim of the accident, which was caused by his father, who was driving while intoxicated, had died. About 10 other people were seriously injured. The accident was reported on the news. It's amazing what the media can do. Family and friends. Accusations flew from all sides. In an instant, his father went from being a good man to a scoundrel. But what hurt the most was the truth. The family he loved so much had turned their backs on him with ease. He desperately tried to ignore this new reality, confined to a small room. He needed to be with his mother, in that dark, cold hospital room. The world of a 17-year-old boy was filled with coldness and apathy. He had nothing to believe in. However, whenever he was alone and wandering aimlessly, there was always one person who held him back. Investigator Guan rushed over and shouted furiously at him. "Get off immediately!" In the hospital, he told the investigator that if it weren't for Guan, he wouldn't have made it through. Thanks to him watching over him, he never went hungry and was even able to finish school. If it weren't for Guan, he would have made irreparable mistakes and resorted to the most desperate measures. He is grateful from the bottom of his heart. The investigator said that the doctor had informed him that his mother needed rehabilitation treatment. This treatment is probably expensive, but he doesn't even have insurance. So he thought about it. To be honest, he actually has much more money than it might seem at first glance. So he thought that. But Hyunwoo interrupted him, saying that it wasn't necessary. He understands what Kwon is trying to say. Thank you very much, but it's okay. He can pay for his mother's hospital expenses himself. The investigator told Hyunwoo not to misunderstand him. He has nowhere to use the money anyway. Smiling, the guy asked Gwyn if he liked his mother. Don't try to deny it. It's written all over your face. Gwon said, sorry. Sighing, Hyunwoo replied to the investigator that if it was about him, he didn't mind. The excited investigator asked if it was true, but then what was the problem? The guy replied that there was a difference between his feelings for him and his mother's feeling. He remembered the day when he got beaten up by him, and then Guan took him to the hospital to see his mother. The investigator asked if he was talking about the day when Hyunwoo took money from his classmates and then ran into him. The boy replied that it was surprising how well he remembered the detail. In any case, he saw his mother lying in the intensive care unit. He realized how reckless he had been. That day, he made a vow. No matter what happened, he would do everything in his power to make his mother better. Patting the boy on the head, Gwon said that was commendable, if anything came up. If he couldn't handle it on his own, he should come to him right away. Hyunwoo replied that he would, and to call him by his first name. He hadn't been an investigator for a long time. As he left, Gwon said goodbye. When night fell, Hyunwoo logged into the game New World, where his pets were waiting for him. He asked if the snake, the turtle, and the mouse were ready to start. They replied yes. The night was long, and darkness was his element. He said it was time to go hunting. He was the one who roamed in the darkness, the Dark Walker, and now they would fight these monsters. Together, they descended to the coast and began hunting the Sharkmen using tactics. The bat flew in front of the monsters' faces, distracting them and shouting to its master. Armed with a sword, Hyunwoo rushed forward and delivered crushing blows. Thus, they destroyed one monster after another. Soon, only remnants of energy remained on the coast. The mouse noticed that there was one last one left and pointed it out to its master. It was the leader of the Sharkmen, with red evil eyes, level 58. The guy decided that this was the perfect opponent to end his journey. The mouse shouted where his master's equipment was. He had lost his mind. Hyunwoo replied that he would not use his equipment or special skills. They should just follow him and not interfere, even if he was on the brink of death. The terrifying monster lunged at the guy, brandishing huge sharp claws. It delivered a powerful blow, but the guy managed to dodge the deadly attack. Jumping to the side, he delivered a crushing blow to the Sharkmen boss. The monster's sharp teeth flew in all directions. Hyunwoo thought that he had learned something from constantly fighting. In the New World, level is not an absolute number, but only a general indicator. Orientation on the terrain, quick decision-making, instant reactions, and many other factors influence the outcome of a battle. Fighting fiercely against a strong opponent, Hyunwoo dealt crushing blows. He thought that this was why even a very strong person could lose to someone who was significantly weaker than him. With eyes flashing fiercely, the monstrous creature attacked the young man, trying to destroy him. But Hyunwoo skillfully and swiftly dodged the monster's deadly attacks. Clutching his sword in his hands, he circled the Sharkman and struck him with powerful blows. The young man thought about how everything he had learned in the New World was how to fight monsters. Standing before the terrifying creature, he decided to unleash all his knowledge on it. The pets shouted that it was amazing. The master had surpassed himself. The Sharkman was destroyed and gradually dissolved into the air, leaving only clumps of energy behind. The pets ran to him. The bat asked where the master had learned such blows. Seeing what had been dropped, Hyunwoo said that this monster was not a boss, so the items were quite ordinary. He got Sharkman's shackles, which slow down movement and are unlikely to be useful in battle. However, they will help to stay in place during the strongest storms. He also got a coral dagger, a shell, and a shark fin. Mermaid scales that allow you to breathe underwater. After collecting the items, Hyunwoo decided to climb the lighthouse. Mouse asked why they were here. This is the final destination. He replied that he had seen the lighthouse in the mirror, but now everything looked old and abandoned. When they climbed to the top, the mouse said admiringly that the view was breathtaking. The guy thought for a moment. They were there, but what should they do next? The mouse distracted him. She called out to the owner that there was a hole here. Hyunwoo came over to take a look. He said, "What if we try this?" and stuck his mirror into the hole. The night sky was reflected in the mirror. The mouse screamed, "Is the lighthouse spinning in circles?" They were stunned to see that the lighthouse was spinning and waited to see what would happen next. Suddenly, a huge bright beam lit up everything around them. The lighthouse light flashed. The system announced that the quest had been updated. The whisper of the mysterious mirror was the entrance to a new world. The lighthouse was not the final destination of his journey, but merely a signpost. This place is at the edge of the world and is the entrance to another world open only to the chosen one. The mirror will show the way to new adventures. The boy was surprised. Did he really have to follow this beam of light straight into the sea? So, that's what the mermaid's scale was for. Placing the skull on his shoulder, Hyun-woo boldly stepped into the waves, following the light. Soon, Hyun-woo was completely submerged in the sea, and was surprised to find that it was quite easy to breathe. Swimming between the corals and past the sea creatures, he shouted forward into the new world. Spreading his arms, Hyun-woo, accompanied by his pets, cut through the waves. Looking around, he said how beautiful it was. He had never seen such landscapes even in documentaries. He had never seen such landscapes in the ocean. He told his pets that they were heading straight for their destination. Suddenly, Hyun-woo saw a huge black octopus in front of him. Startled, the young man was struck by the monster's powerful tentacle. The powerful blow sent Hyun-woo flying to the side. The mouse flew over to its owner, looking worried. She asked if he was okay. Hyun-woo activated his cat's eye skill. In front of him was a level 40 sea devil. The guy was surprised that the monster was an octopus. At that moment, the octopus attacked the guy, swinging its huge tentacles. Drawing his sword, Hyun-woo thought that even though this monster was only level 40, he shouldn't underestimate it. Underwater, it was difficult to even move, let alone concentrate on a target. On the other hand, it moved much more chaotically than birds flying in the sky. If only he could concentrate, he wouldn't have to look around in all directions trying to catch it. At that moment, Hyun-woo remembered the Sharkman's shackles. Once the battle began, no items other than weapons, shields, and potions could be taken out of the bag. But the snake had no such restriction. It was a good thing he had given her the shackles. Putting them on, he shouted to the monster that he would now be able to give it a worthy fight. Swinging his leg, Hyun-woo delivered a crushing blow to the huge octopus. The system reported that due to the sea monster's high elasticity, his attack had failed. At that moment, the giant octopus released a powerful stream of ink at the guy. He thought he was sure he could wound it with the dark sword that could pass through any defense. But if he did, desperately fighting would not last long. He had to hold on somehow. With the help of his cat's eye, he could see up to 10 weak spots on the other monsters. But he could only distinguish 3 or 4 at the moment of attack. And now, he had fallen on its head. He had to wait for the moment when it gathered itself for an attack and its muscles were as tense as possible. The mouse screamed, "Master!" Let him attack the sea monster on the right. Holding his sword in front of him, Hyun-woo rushed at the octopus and struck it. He managed to destroy the monster, but Hyun-woo thought it wasn't that easy. Due to the resistance of the water, his movements were greatly slowed down, and his center of gravity was unusually shifted. Although his leather armor and stone helmet were intact, the strength of the steel sword was greatly reduced underwater. Perhaps he should use the coral dagger he had obtained from the Sharkman. The octopus was only level 40. Under normal circumstances, he could have dealt with it by picking his nose with one hand, but in the fight with it, he almost died. Who knows what other monsters he might encounter along the way. He needs to take countermeasures and make sure that his movements underwater are as easy as on land. After logging out of the game, Hyun-woo went to the pool to practice in the water. Trying to strike, he doubted that it was even possible. First of all, he needed to get used to the water. Practicing catching small fish at high speeds would be ideal for adapting to the water. Suddenly, Hyun-woo heard a mouse scream for help. It had been caught by a dolphin. 4 days later, each of them found a way to overcome the difficulties they had encountered. The bat used its wings to swim underwater like a stingray. The turtle, which had no wings, used water currents to move around. But strangely enough, the snake adapted best to the underwater world. Following the beam of light from the lighthouse, they descended even deeper into the water. After a while, they encountered a monster crab with an impenetrable shell that could only be defeated by attacking its joints. They also fought a jellyfish-like monster with dozens of tentacles that paralyzed the entire body with a single touch, called Jellyfish. In the fight, they had to use all their skills at once, which made them grow significantly. But their greatest achievement was something else. He forced all 3 summoned creatures to fight alongside him until they were exhausted, which greatly improved their battle awareness. The sea routes turned out to be much more confusing than expected. Some only looked blocked but allowed passage, and vice versa. Although they were sometimes carried away by strong currents, it was only a matter of time before they reached their destination. They followed the beam from the mirror. Finally, they saw a glowing castle ahead. The mouse asked where they were. The bright light blinded their eyes. They had arrived at their destination. As they approached, they saw a wonderful castle with many towers and staircases. The entrance was guarded by 2 men with mermaid tails. They looked at the newcomers with a frown. Turning to them, Hyun-woo asked if they could have a moment. They asked if he was human. The boy confirmed that he was. The merman said that he had not seen a human since the disaster. It seemed to him that the way out was completely cut off. If you looked closely, he had no tail. It must have been difficult to get here with legs. And how did he breathe? He had heard that humans couldn't breathe in water. Hyun-woo replied that he had defeated Sharkman and accidentally got hit by a mermaid's scales. The merman replied that Sharkman was the enemy of mermaids. He must be a great adventurer to have defeated him and avenged the mermaids. They are not enemies of humans. Welcome. The guy asked what the city was called. The surprised merman asked if he had come here without knowing that. This is the sea home of the mermaids, Nordless. This city is a pearl of the sea, protected by the sea god. He replied that he had seen many cities, but none could compare to this one. He had heard that it was a true treasure of the mermaid nation. He had come in search of a person. Did they know anyone named Christine? They replied that there was no one with that name here. Hyun-woo said he knew. He believed that he had lived a long time ago. The merman got angry and shouted that they had said they didn't know. If he hadn't said he had defeated Sharkman, they would have thrown him out long ago. Looking at the frowning mermaids clutching their clubs, Hyun-woo apologized and said he was mistaken. When they walked away, the mouse asked who that guy was. He was pretty strong. The guy thought they all knew him well, but such a reaction was just because of his name. He tried to ask the other mermaids, but they rudely replied that they didn't know him and sent him away. Hyun-woo thought it was all useless. After several hours, he had no information at all. The mouse asked what they were going to do. He replied that there was one way. They had to get close to the mermaids. Information about Christian could only be obtained by getting close to the mermaids. To start with, he decided to show the mermaids some wonders from the land. He demonstrated armor made from the skins of animals that did not exist at the bottom of the sea. Then he showed them iron weapons made by humans. The armor and weapons were not very ergonomic. If they bought them, they would not be disappointed. He told them that they obtained these items by destroying monsters on land. Soon, all the mermaids were talking about the man who had arrived in Nordless a few days earlier. He had defeated Sharkman and entered the city with dignity. He sells such rare items. In Nordless, one can only dream of such rare items. Equipment made from earthly monsters, or weapons made of shiny iron. Beautiful and shiny things are just what mermaids like. Hyun-woo also cooked food and sold it. The mermaid who arrived said she had been waiting all day. He also sells special hot dishes that they had never tasted before in their lives. All the items he sells are eternal. They will never break. The guy shouted that it was paradise. How good that he hadn't gotten rid of this junk. Who knew he was so valuable here, in a mermaid town that hasn't had contact with the outside world for hundreds of years? All this junk is worth its weight in gold. To gather information, he needs to gain the mermaid's trust. He kept thinking about how to do it, and then a pretty good opportunity came along. A whole crowd of mermaids had gathered in the square, and all to buy this junk. Besides, when Hyun-woo looked around, he was surprised by the crowd that had surrounded him. Mermaids had eaten seaweed and shellfish all their lives. They had never tried cooked food because there was no fire here. But with the pot, he could cook without fire. The mermaids who tried the cooked food brought him the ingredients themselves, so he could cook for them. They use weapons and armor made from shells, because that is the only material available to them. With the help of magic, his items do not need to be repaired. Therefore, they are clearly superior. Mermaids pay with pearls instead of gold and silver. 1 pearl is worth 10 silver coins. He simply couldn't believe it. It had been a long time since he had been so lucky. When he bought things, they became much more talkative. Cooking food improves his cooking skill. Plus, he gets rid of junk. Hyun-woo gained the purification skill. This skill allows him to remove curses. It is almost impossible to obtain. He took out Lancel's sword and decided to use the purification and restoration skills. The system reported that the curse had been removed. The sword returned to its original form. This sword was twice as good as the one he got from the mouse. But there's a downside. Not everyone has the dark attribute, so the price will be lower. Laughing, Hyun-woo shouted that Lancel could see it. He thanked him for the sword. The system reported that the special effect of Lancel's sword was magic. Once a day, it could summon a lower vampire named Dunfilla. The guy was surprised by the summoning. The conditions for strengthening the summoning were too difficult, but there was another way. He shouted the sword spirit's summoning. A few moments later, a vampire appeared before him and asked why he had summoned him. Frowning, Hyun-woo asked if he was starting to get cocky right from the start. At that moment, an enraged bat rushed toward him and screamed that it would destroy Danfil. A battle began between the bat, with malice in its heart, and Danfil. The vampire asked who he was. The bat shouted that he didn't know him. He should stop talking nonsense immediately. How could he not know him? Throwing the mouse aside, the vampire replied that he was some kind of strange creature. From the powerful blow, the bat flew to the side and crashed to the ground. The vampire asked how he could not know a bat that did not even have a name. Watching them, Hyun-woo thought about the boy and the bat. Why was he so angry? What had happened between them? This is going to be difficult. If a fight breaks out, he won't be able to help or stop him. His level was just above 15, compared to Danfil, who was at level 25. Perhaps there was a significant difference in their levels, but besides that, there was the bat. He shouted for the mouse to be careful and cautious in a long fight. The vampire is much higher level than him. He shouldn't even think about comparing him to those he's fought before. Let him watch first and find its weaknesses. The vampire told the human to shut up and watch as he tore the flying rat apart. The enraged flying mouse screamed for the scum to shut up and lunged into attack. With a swing of his sharp claws, the vampire knocked the mouse far away with a single blow. Smirking, he said it was nothing. It was like he was just messing around with humans. Their fight must be over. Frowning, Hyunwoo looked at the vampire and replied, "Yes, now let him get lost." The vampire replied that if he wanted to start a fight, he should bring a normal opponent. Even if he gathered 100 of those mice, it would still be ridiculous. Breathing heavily, the bat cursed furiously. Tears of resentment flowed from her eyes. The guy asked the mouse if he was angry and decided to put on a show. He wasn't dependent on circumstances, but he would pretend that it was because of them. The enraged mouse asked his owner to call him again. He had to fight him. Sighing, Hyunwoo asked what he was talking about. Let him explain so that he could understand. The mouse told him that he had been tormenting him in the afterlife for more than 10 years. The guy was stunned that Dolphin had been tormenting. The mouse explained that even though Dolphin was the lowest being in the afterlife, he was still an aristocrat. Moreover, he was a typical villain who was weak in front of the strong, but strong in front of the weak. Therefore, the bats, who are the only descendants of the vampire clan, suffered humiliation at his hand. Because of his orders, he was bullied by the other bats and eventually expelled from the clan. Hyunwoo understood why he was called a bat with malice in his heart. Danfil has no choice but to fight him. This is his chance. He told the mice that he understood what was going on, but he couldn't allow him to fight Danfil right now. No matter how many times he fought, if it was like the last battle, he would not be able to defeat him. He would simply be beaten to death. So he must listen. At first, the bat must become stronger. The mouse realized that he must eat. But even if he dies as a victim of this torturous diet, if he can only overthrow that monster, he said he understood. If he can win, he'll do anything. Let the master train him so he can defeat him. Taking out the pot, Hyunwoo asked, "Are you sure about that, bat?" On the first day, Hyunwoo said that he must eat properly so that nothing is left. Only then would he be able to defeat him. Breathing heavily, the mouse said he would rest first. On the second day, Hyunwoo showed him how to fight properly. If he didn't do it that way, he wouldn't be able to defeat Danfil. Did he really want to get beaten up again? The enraged bat trained furiously and shouted that he wouldn't lose. He was sure he would definitely defeat him, twice as much as he had received from his master. A few days later, Hyunwoo called Danfil. The stunned vampire said that this couldn't be happening. The mouse shouted furiously, telling him to watch out. Next time, he would definitely beat him. Smirking, Hyunwoo shouted to the vampire that next time it would probably be even harder for him. The stunned vampire frowned and said, "Even so, but he's just a bat." As he disappeared, he promised that next time he would tear his bat to pieces. They trained for several days, but it was much better than last time. Hyunwoo had a special technique. However, he was looking for peace of mind, and traveling with him helped him maintain his accumulated experience. Everything was fine. The only problem was that he would call him back. It would take a day. Once he became more confident in him, he would start a fight. But there is a law. When the tide goes out, it will come back in. He gathered as many pearls as he could, and trade dried up. He needed to go quietly and find out information about Christine. Rusal said that even if he was Ark, it wouldn't be that easy. Hyunwoo replied that he had heard that the story of the mermaids was written on a beautiful crystal stone. He wants to learn more about the mermaids he deeply admires. He will just take a look and leave. There are no mermaids in Norris who know Christine. Moreover, the mermaids hate him. They become uncomfortable when asked about him. For a long time, they had been taught to act this way. However, it was said that only in the kingdom was information about him carved on crystal stone. If it is written in letters long forgotten by humans, he might be able to read them. The merman said he would only fulfill the request because he is Ark. As soon as he finishes, he must leave as quickly as possible. Hyunwoo approached the huge crystal. Looking at the inscriptions, the guy wondered if he really had to decipher them, if he wanted to continue the quest. He placed his hand on the crystal and closed his eyes. An image of a city flashed in his mind. On the balcony of the castle, the guy saw a beautiful mermaid with a crown on her head. Tears streamed down her beautiful face. The mermaid cried bitterly. She watched the boy leave and repeated his name, Christine. The mermaid said she loved him, and she would love him even if all the water in the sea dried up. She loved him, even if it meant enduring the pain that was tearing her heart apart. She believed his words. She believed that Kristen would return to find her, as he had promised. And until then, she would wait for him at the appointed place. Let him not forget the words she whispered to him. If Christine ever wants to see her, He should just close his eyes. In that secluded place, she will wait for the day when Christine touches her. After removing his hand, Hyunwoo realized that it was a love letter. Once, he had written a huge love letter. Suddenly, the shocked boy saw that the huge crystal had shattered into pieces. The stunned mermaids cried out, asking why it was breaking. How did this happen? Wielding their weapons, the mermaids rushed toward him, shouting that the stranger had destroyed the stone. Hyunwoo didn't understand what had happened. He couldn't imagine that he would be locked up in a dungeon for the rest of his life. At that moment, a merman came and said that the queen wanted to see him. He should follow him. He thought he was going mad. When he was wrongly accused of breaking the mermaid's treasure, he no longer cared about the quest. After all, there was nothing terrible about failing and being expelled. If they were enemies, he would have to be wary of mermaids for the rest of his life. Such was the life of the young man. How did everything suddenly go so wrong? Soon he was brought to the castle to meet the mermaid queen herself. The mermaids frowned at the guy. When he saw the queen, he was stunned to see that she looked like the mermaid he had seen in his vision. The mermaids cried out that they couldn't believe that a stranger had destroyed the monument of the royal palace. It was an unprecedented incident. He deserved punishment. The stranger must be punished, starting with his intrusion into the royal palace. But the mermaids always upheld justice. Even if he committed a crime, the punishment must be determined by finding out the sequence of events from beginning to end. At that moment, the queen interrupted them by raising her hand. She said, "Enough." The queen said that from the words of the nobles, she understood that this was an unprecedented case of a stranger destroying a monument at the royal palace. Of course, it would be right for Ark to receive a severe punishment. However, it turned out that he enjoyed great trust among the people of Nordris. There were even those who volunteered to defend him. It is not easy to achieve such a level of trust. Therefore, she would give him a chance to explain himself. Let Ark explain why he destroyed the stone. The young man replied that he had no intention of breaking it. He had only touched it to learn about a person named Christine, but it had broken on its own. The mermaids shouted that he should stop lying. It was impossible for it to break on its own. Had he really said Christine's name? The queen asked how he was connected to Christine. Hyunwoo replied that he was indeed looking for him, but it was difficult to say what his relationship to him was. On the contrary, he wanted to know more. In order to find out who Christine was and how he was connected to him, he had gone on a journey and made his way here. The mermaids shouted at him not to lie. They wanted him to tell them about his relationship with Christine. They were sure that the stranger knew everything and had come to harm the mermaids. The guy replied that this was not true. No one had told him about Christine, and he approached the stone with his last hope. They had to believe him. Frowning, the queen sadly said that Christine was an enemy of the mermaids and a traitor. Before the dark times began, mermaids interacted with many people as they traveled across the sea. Then the queen came ashore and fell in love with a young man. That young man was Christine. He was the boy whom the queen loved. Hyunwoo thought that the era of darkness was connected to the time when a dark force took over the world. When the 7 heroes appeared, Kristen had already been a human for several hundred years. However, mermaids cannot live on land. Before returning to the sea, the queen promised to meet him again, and, as a token of her love, gave him the sea god's compass. Nordris was originally a mythical city located in the sea, which is difficult to find even for mermaids who have left it. But the compass always emits a light directed toward Nordris. The compass is a priceless object for the queen. To give it away is to give away everything you have, with the hope that you will always be found. Kristen came as promised. As a stranger, he was warmly welcomed by the queen and the mermaids. However, less than a year later, he abandoned everything and returned to land. The devoted queen locked herself in her room and cried all night. However, several decades later, she suddenly disappeared, and soon after that, disaster struck Nordris. Since time immemorial, Nordris had been under the protection of the Great White Gallic, who had communicated spiritually with the queen from generation to generation. After her disappearance, he became the guardian of the mermaids and the master of the sea, but he became uncontrollable. It was as if he had gone mad. The guy asked if they thought Christina was to blame. She replied that if not, then what? The queen had cursed him. The cursed soul was driving Gallic mad. In the end, because of Christina, Nordris lost his former glory. Hyunwoo replied that it couldn't be. He didn't know all the details, but he was sure that the queen wouldn't have hated him or been angry with him. On the contrary, she tried to understand the circumstances that forced him to leave. This is also related to the reason for her disappearance. The queen asked how he could know this without even having any idea who Christine was. The guy replied that it was written on a crystal stone from the palace. The mermaids shouted that it was a lie. He was talking nonsense to avoid punishment. It was impossible for him to decipher the language written on the stone. Hyunwoo replied that he was not lying. If they did not believe him, he promised to find and show them proof. She had kept something that Christine had left behind when he left. It was probably something so important that she had kept it with special care. If they found it, they would understand his sincerity and the reason for the queen's disappearance. She probably said she didn't know where it had gone. It would be easy. The answer was kept, where Gallic had become uncontrollable after her disappearance. Let them name the place where he was. The queen replied that Gallic was the lord of the sea flowing into the ocean. The only way to find him was with the sea god's compass. Hyun-woo said that he should hurry then. The queen, feeling anxious, asked what that meant. Could he have something to show them? Could it be what she was thinking? At that moment, the young man took out the mirror he had received from Deborah and said that it was the sea god's compass. The mermaids were stunned that the stranger had the sea god's compass, which had been missing for over 100 years. How could this have happened? He said that they probably knew that no one could take the stranger's possession without the owner's permission. He had to find out. What was the thing Christine had left him? So please help him find the guardian of the mermaids. This might be their last chance. Lowering her head, the queen thought for a moment and said, "All right, let him look carefully." Then Ark would notice 3 different colored gems on the compass. If he lined them up, the compass would lead him to Gallic. The system reported that the quest had been updated. He must find the place where Gallic is and find a way to calm him down. At the same time, in the village of Harun, Roko was trying to fight a wolf. It pinned her to the ground, and the girl screamed desperately for help. A huge fanged mouth loomed over the frightened, defenseless Roko. The girl screamed in despair, calling for help. Suddenly, a huge fist flashed by. A strong, muscular arm delivered a crushing blow to the enraged wolf, freeing Roko. A man who had rushed to the cries for help easily dealt with the monster and saved the girl. Stunned, Roko watched as the terrifying beast flew sideways from the powerful blow and let out a scream. A few moments later, the huge wolf, destroyed by the savior, began to dissolve into thin air. The man felt as if he had a tremendous power within him. Here, he couldn't limp like he did in real life, but he was used to walking with a limp, so moving normally was even more difficult. Smiling, he thought about Hyun-woo, that kid, so he hadn't just recommended the game for no reason. Approaching the girl, he asked if Miss Roko was all right. Did she need any help? The grateful girl smiled and replied that she was fine. The wolf hadn't managed to hurt her. She warmly thanked her savior for saving her from the terrible monster. Machoman smiled in response and said there was no need to thank him. He was happy to help.